The race for championship slithers into the fields of Iowa, where the corn seems to be the dominant point of the conversation when you come into a state like this. But for now, the topic is racing, going for a race victory, and of course, trying to keep up the points tally as we continue through this regular season. It's live from the virtual Iowa Speedway, where the KBueno Racing Network is happy to welcome you to the third race of the Season 2 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series action from the brand new reinvigorated virtual Iowa Speedway for the Corn 225 powered by Weather. Of course, happy that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network. We continue our tour through this 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, and so far, top two have been in style. This third one should be no different. We're alongside Francisco Bacallao in the booth. I am Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, Iowa Speedway is its own right as a racetrack, just very unique in the way that it's built, in the way that it was handled as a racing facility over its years since 2006. Now coming up on the 20th anniversary of this racetrack being born all the way in the mid-2000s, and as these drivers have taken on two very different races, super speedway, mile and a half, now you add in the third discipline, a short track.
A pair of South Florida natives up in the Midwest this time of year. I'm happy to be here, get a little bit some of that cool weather. It's been a hot week down here in Florida. These drivers, I'm sure, are looking forward to participating in some fantastic racing here from Iowa. Thank you to Rusty Wallace for opening this racetrack. Now, 20 years does not feel like that long, and it recently got a bit of a repave, though not entirely. As you can see on our B-roll, the curves on this racetrack, when you talk about turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, the lower 2-3 lanes of the racetrack got paved, so that will give him added grip. You still have the older asphalt laying on the back stretch and front stretch, which will make it a very interesting topic of conversation throughout the night, the transition points between the new and old asphalt.
And we'll have a lot more on the details of this Iowa Speedway in just a few moments through our little pre-race show. But through this 2026 schedule, Francisco, the one thing I don't see are the road courses. You don't see one until July 12th at Sonoma Raceway, but up until then, we've had Daytona, Las Vegas. We go short track racing tonight at Iowa, but what jumps off the page for you in this juncture of the schedule, where before that all-star break, drivers are still trying to pick up their points and get themselves into a rhythm for an ultimate chase run at the end?
And I gotta say, it's a bit of a shame, at least me personally, with not that many road courses. I love my road courses. I think they put on some good shows as of late, and I enjoy running them, so we'll have to wait all the way until summer before we show up to Sonoma Raceway. But those first 6-7 races of the season, we got some really good ones in there. We'll be at Echo Park Speedway, the new 2022 version of that racetrack with the Super Speedway Racing, before going over to another short track in North Wilkesboro on March 22nd, followed by Texas and Auto Club, a little bit more traditional mile and a half, 2-mile racetracks before we go into that all-star break. And I'll be happy to try to throw my hand in the ring over in the all-star racing if I can race my way into that special event before I make my handful of starts in this series. But this opening run, it's going to be about getting yourself into a good points position over the next handful of races, seeing how many wild cards are in there, and making sure you don't build yourself too early of a hole. That way you don't have to constantly be digging yourself out as you move into the second half of the regular season.
You're right, and looking at the first part of the schedule, that's why I only mentioned 3 disciplines of racing. We don't add in the 4th of road course events until way later in the schedule, and really that won't be a factor in terms of the overall arching storyline of this DTH Cup Series Championship, which has seen a lot already over the first 2 weeks between Daytona and then Las Vegas last week. 2 different winners and a points tally that continues to remain very much in the air as to who is the overwhelming favorite to go at it for the title in a few months' time. Let's take a look at what happened last week, a virtual reminder of what happened at the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. A quick start for Alex Muscarella was the tail of the tape, Francisco. Ross Harlow, his teammate, going around off of turn 4, but it was really Muscarella who set the tone early in the few laps.
Yeah, it was a very interesting start there before we finally got settled into some kind of green flag action. You see sideways here off of turn 2. Great save by that machine, but eventually here in a few more laps time, as he's trying to recover it, he loses all his track position, and eventually we found ourselves up in the front in this battle between tire saving and trying to be aggressive. Stempien was trying to move his way forward, and it wouldn't take long for a yellow flag. You see contact right there. That's Parker Bland and the 98 going for a spin across the front straightaway, bringing out our second yellow of the night.
Yeah, those two would get into trouble, but that wasn't necessarily dominating the stories in the Sin City. Of course, 10 lead changes. This was one of them. Steven Stempien at the very front of the field after Jesse Whittington had some mishaps on a pit road. More contact at the exit of turn 4. Some of those rookie drivers getting into contact, and we saw a lot of that over the long green flag stretches. Drivers going 2, 3 wide, just like this one, for the race lead between Porter and Steven Stempien on the inside of Jesse Whittington, staying out on old tires. Of course, they would lead the conversation through the midway point and through the strategy that would basically topple over anything else that this race could have offered on a hot track surface with a lot of multi-lane coverage. This track brought it all. Brandon Banks, Justin Erb among those in the mid-pack trying to squabble for position, while Jaden Porter extended his advantage up front. And the Harlows, Francisco, started to make waves midway through. Short runs, they weren't necessarily that much of a factor. Long runs kicked in, and they started to make waves. Of course, all of that cycling through with Jaden Porter has been the man to beat.
And we saw off-strategy moves here by the likes of that 96 of Matthew Parasini, him and another race car. They were on a different strategy with the timing of the cautions and staying out, so they needed a little bit of luck, and unfortunately for one of them, made a pit stop a handful before this yellow flag right here. The 72 goes sideways on the back straightaway and brings out a caution with about 20 laps to go in the race, setting us up for late caution flag pit stops that would determine our race off pit road, and a 2-tire call by Jaden Porter would keep him in the lead, and it would prove to be effective. Those 2 tires giving him the added bonus of rotation against his rival Brandon Banks, and Porter went on to win his first race of season number 2 of DTH.
Slapping the cap on what was his most dominant Droppin the Hammah Cup Series performance of his career so far. Only 6 starts entering tonight's race, and he's the overwhelming favorite, possibly entering Iowa with a chance to win again. And a little flashback as to where Jaden Porter found success first off in his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career. That was all the way back at Dover. Way early in the mid-regular season of Season 1, Jaden Porter joined. This was his first ever race, and it didn't look like it. Here he is coming underneath Brandon Banks. This was for the race lead, entering Turn 1, and Porter would not only dominate the first 2 stages of the race, he would lead the way through the rest of the event, and of course, take home his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory on search for win number 3. He's already had a win each in his 2 seasons competing. This is his first one, fully making an entry into the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series as a full-time driver. So, Francisco, for Jaden Porter, right now the sole representation for BBR. He's carried the torch nicely in that Las Vegas race. What stood out to you most about his win there?
Tire saving definitely stood out to me with Jaden Porter. He was doing a good job of keeping the tires under him through the run while still being fast enough on those short runs on restarts when he just exits pit road. Being able to keep the speed in all portions of the run is difficult, because if you go too fast on the short run, then you burn your stuff up. You're not quite as quick on the long run, and there's more laps that you have to wind up there. If you go too lightly on the short run, you might have long run speed, but you might have lost too much ground in the process. So finding that balance is something Porter does well. We see him do that in other series when he steps behind the wheel as well. So to see him doing that at Las Vegas, a track he's proven to have some speed at in the past, doesn't surprise me one bit. And we'll see if a track like tonight, one that he has had some speed at in other series in the past, we'll see if that proves to be effective for his chance to go back to back.
And he enters this Iowa Speedway with a brand new mindset with a lot of the rest of the field. This is a track opened back in 2006, a venue that was helped being created by NASCAR legend Rusty Wallace, a .875 mile, 1.408 kilometer mini oval out in Newton, Iowa. Again, track opened back in 06, 12 to 14 degrees of banking in the corners. But of course, the biggest thing to note about this new Iowa Speedway that was refreshed a little while ago on iRacing are the brand new corners. They did repave the insides of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The rest of the Iowa Speedway is the same old surface that's bumpy and nasty as it's always been over its long history. Here's a bit of a lap here around the next-gen car with the Iowa Speedway. Always hopping into 4th gear, being on the high revs, acceleration off the corners, but you have to be very featherly on the throttle at the exit of these things, because these cars, now with the higher horsepower output, but 750 and tracks underneath a mile in length, that of course is going to add for a bit more of the rear tire spin as this race continues to unfold, and especially if the long green flag runs kick in, which will be a big topic of conversation through the event. So drivers are sitting behind the iRacing official pace car. Let's bring you the starting grid for the third race of the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season here from the virtual Iowa Speedway. And on the pole, how about Kip Easley, the Drinkin' Bros Racing number 8 machine, 22.348, a stunner of a Q effort over the 10-minute session. He'll set over the qualifying time, good enough for pole, with Ross Harlow back-to-back top 10s after starting both of those events. Outside of the top 15, he's got his best qualifying effort of the season on the outside of row number 1. Back in row number 2 is where you'll find Steven Stempien, led a few laps at Las Vegas last week, unsuccessful in his journey for his first win of 26, and Matthew Perusini dominated after staying a while out on strategy at Las Vegas and did lead some laps there, but still looking for one of his best finishes of the year on the outside of row number 2. Last week's winner, Jaden Porter, fresh off of the jackpot at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, looking to go back-to-back. He's inside the top 5, and Cedric Hunter, a great finish last week at Las Vegas on the podium, brings the Toyota Camry for Cat 5 Esports on the outside in P6. Timothy Stubblefield, Daytona winner from last season, is 7th in the 9 car, and Matt Baynes in the 72 ran up front early in the Las Vegas race. He'll try to bounce back from 8th position on the grid, and the final 2 in the top 10, Jesse Whittington in the 94, and so far the DTH Cup Series points leader of Brandon Banks.
11th goes to Alex Muscarella, who's definitely shown a little bit more speed this time. He rolls off from 11th with Richard Swavely in the number 32 in P12. 13th goes to four-name Warren Kyle Keith in the number 24 with Charles Van Schaik in the 14th position. 15th goes to Ray Rogers, has been struggling to get some speed out of that 51 here today. He'll be rolling alongside Garrett Walden. Christian McCrelly in the number 75. Got a great story on him to talk about later in this race, with Charles Stevens rolling off from 18th and rounding out our top 20. Sheldon Hart in the 74 and James Kung from the 12.
Back in 21st is Lauren Vincent, Stephen Harlow, deep start 22nd, Brad Fulham, Casey Knighton, and Kevin Roy bring the end of our 25-car field here from the cornfields of Iowa. So our SKM.com race analysis tells us 225 laps in this Corn 225 powered by Weather. I'm going to further question why that was even chosen as a name. I don't know why Weather was powering this race, but we'll figure it out. A little under 200 miles, 316.8 kilometers here from Iowa Speedway with Kip Easley on the front row. And for Kip Easley, this may just be the best qualifying effort we have seen from the 8 car all year long, and even through the 2025 edition of this DTH Cup Series. We've always talked about some of his best chances to win coming to the super speedways at Talladega, Daytona, Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta, but this is so far the most standout effort we've seen from the 8 car, trying to bring the Kyle Busch colors to victory lane for the first time in his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career. So it's him and Ross Harlow on the front row, Steven Stempien right behind with Matthew Perusini in the 96 on the outside of row number 2. We'll go an extra lap before we get this thing green. But Francisco, any outstanding thoughts for this jump, lap number 1? What is it going to take to step out in front and at least dominate the first lap here at Iowa?
Well, it's going to tie back to something you mentioned on the previous pace lap when you talked about the race name, powered by Weather. Yeah, I think my theory is that we have an uncharacteristically cool day here from Iowa. I know it's in real life it's already March, but still very much in the north and the Midwest. You get some days where the temperature's up in the 70s, and maybe the next day you get a low temperature at freezing point. So I know the Midwest is very characteristic of that, but on iRacing standards, 65 degrees, that's the minimum temperature you can set ambient towards any racetrack. You have the range between 65 and 70 degrees, and we have maximum humidity, 100%. If it was any more than that, we'd see some fog out on the racetrack, which thankfully for us, Kenneth, we don't have, but that's going to mean these drivers are going to have to navigate some tricky conditions and a cold track.
Well, the weather is cooperating. A beautiful sunset night in the sim. Kip Easley, Ross Harlow on the front row. Pair of Chevrolets bring us racing for the 3rd time this season from Iowa. And from the word go, Ross Harlow stepping out in front. A fantastic initial start, getting out ahead of Kip Easley. Perusini stepping out in front of Stempien. Top 4 single file off turn 2.
You see already a lot of the cars are trying to make their way to the bottom. That's going to be the line you want to run for most of the evening, is at or around it. Want to put your left side on around the paint. You find some grip down there, some rotation. This track is notorious on iRacing with these next gens for being extremely tight. Any rotation you can get will save that right front tire, and if you can't save your right front tire, there's so much time and positions you end up losing. So be careful on who's saving their stuff on the early portion of this run, and if you see somebody heading in the right direction, we'll have to monitor their tire status.
And watching this group back from 5th as Jaden Porter continues to hold on his wall of defense, 3 wide, just for a faint moment there off of turn 4 around Cedric Hunter and the likes of Charles Van Schaik. Here's Matt Bayens on the outside, who came home 22nd in that Las Vegas race. You saw him go on the inside spill at the exit of turn 2. That brought out what was really one of the last yellows of the race and set up for that 2-tire call that this man used, Jaden Porter right here, to take away the race victory at Las Vegas in those final few laps. But Baynes looking for a better route tonight, and so far, great run off of turn 4, trying to clear the 82 Ally Chevrolet off of the second corner and go get his wish granted. Matt Baynes to the top 5. We saw him lead a few laps last week at Las Vegas in the overwhelming majority after everyone thought that Alex Muscarello would pull away. Matt Baynes gave him some pressure. The 48 car slipped in turn 1. Gave Baynes the lead for a shorthand moment before, of course, that race turned around in not his favor. Brandon Banks looking to follow in the tracks of Jaden Porter, coming home 2nd place last week to that 82 car. And Richard Swavely Van Schaik in the battle for what's going to be 8th on the racetrack as Ross Harlow extends still by a car length as Kip Easley chases him down.
Yeah, in a way, the 5 and that 82 that are next to each other on the racetrack, that's kind of the battle between the top 2 in the points right now, or at least early going of things, as Banks peeks to the outside momentarily. And they're running well inside this top 10. Up front, though, Kip Easley, even though he got past, he hasn't exactly let Ross Harlow get away from it all. He's still within a car length or 2, and all it takes is one mistake out of that 16, and that 8 car could be side by side for position. I've noticed that Easley will do just that in turns 1 and 2. He enters a lot lower, and he stays a lot lower on the racetrack as well, getting some of that clean air to the nose of his race car. So we'll have to see, obviously, in about 15, 25 laps. That's probably when we'll have a better idea of where they stand on their tires, how quickly they can fall off. And if they do, Kenneth, if their tires are gone by lap 40, the fuel window here is somewhere of about 120 laps. You do not want to run around this racetrack 80 laps with tires that are essentially worse than everybody else's.
And don't let that fool you. Even though you've got some freshened up pavement on the inside of the racetrack, you know, it's not that this Iowa Speedway is not still a tire chewer. It can very well eat up the tires in a very long run. And from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, I mean, that track, which is characteristically known as a rather high grip 1.5 mile track, you put enough laps in it on a long run, and these cars are going to start slipping and sliding, and you're going to find a lot of those mistakes. And of course, the strategy that comes in with putting on your right tire sets at the right time. A look on board with Ross Harlow and our Charlie Beyer photography on board camera. Very good look at what Ross Harlow is doing right now to play a bit of that defense on Kip Easley. And we mentioned that stat for Harlow, 2 top 10s, a 4th at Daytona, P6 back at Las Vegas and Sin City, both of them coming from starts outside of the top 15. And we've mentioned, Francisco, just how difficult it is to make passes with this next-gen car in the original part of it. But then when the update came out last year, that really changed the game, and it made it even more difficult to find yourself around a race car and make passes. Ross Harlow has proven quite the opposite. He can still cut through the field and put himself in good points position. And now that this series has shifted to a chase format where finishes like up front in races like these are going to matter a lot, Ross Harlow has put himself up as an early contender.
Beasley's not making it any easy. You saw he got right up to his back bumper off of turn 4. And you're seeing that him having that clean air, even for a little bit on the inside of turns 1 and 2. Look how low he gets. He gets right onto the paint of the racetrack. If he can stay on board here with Harlow for at least a little bit longer, you'll see what he does here in 3 and 4. You see he does the same thing. Misses the bottom a little bit and gets caught in that dirty air. You see that's exactly what the dirty air is going to do. If you time it wrong like Kip Beasley did on that corner, look how much time he lost.
And now easily will have to hit the reset button. That is easily over 2 car lengths between those 2 cars as Perosini hangs tight in 3rd, looking for any opportunity to see these 2 squabble up and have a chance to sneak in for the race lead. That 96 car and that very colorful Chevrolet running back in 3rd. And from this onboard look, you can easily get a scope of how far, Francisco, this top 4 has separated from everyone else. Steven Stepien is the last car that's hanging by a thread to this train up front, but the gap between him and Matt Baynes, that sits at nearly 2 seconds between those 2 cars. So whatever was going on between Jaden Porter, Matt Baines, Brandon Banks, and this entire group, whether that just be through them losing speed with battling or the speed that the top 4 are carrying alone over the course of this race to start over the first 16. I mean, that is very, very different from what we've seen at other racetracks, especially Las Vegas, even though we did have some separation there. Probably not as large as we're seeing it right now.
And if you remember back to the 4-wide race when we ran at Iowa a few weeks ago, it was the same story. We saw a few cars jump out to a decent-sized gap, and eventually Steven Maggio and the likes of Jaden Porter and some of the rest of the cars drove their way up and past the cars that pulled away, and it proved to be vital to be able to save those tires and keep it going in the right direction. So we'll have to continue monitoring the status. We know green flag racing has been the norm for Iowa ever since this update, so caution flags are not guaranteed and may be at a premium, so you have to make sure you take care of your stuff.
And there's Brandon Banks running inside the top 6. We mentioned he is basically the points leader entering tonight's race. The best average finish of anyone over the first 2 at 1.5. Of course, winning at Daytona to kick off the year and bringing DBR lots of smiles and celebrations for 2026 after they lost their best piece in Lawson Peel, a driver who made it all the way to the championship for last season and ultimately didn't win the championship, but dominated the playoffs, dominated the regular season, and a part of that DBR squad has been overall the best dominant driver. Now Brandon Banks has taken up this step and has harnessed really that leadership role for DBR this season, although Kip Beasley right now is doing well for himself, running quite behind Ross Harlow for the race lead. But you think of last season, how Banks had started it off quite slowly before his first win of the campaign at Chicagoland Speedway. He had an average finishing position of 13.5 over the first 2, a 20th at Daytona, a 7th place at Las Vegas, and then in 2026, what a turnaround it's been for the South Carolinian in Brandon Banks to be able to turn it fully in his direction, have the race victory early, and of course have that runner-up to Jaden Porter at a hard-to-drive Las Vegas Motor Speedway over that final long run. Here's Kip Beasley once again sizing up the Till Valhalla Project number 16. Still within range, Francisco, to make a move, but just doesn't have the punch power yet to get him on the inside.
Going to be difficult for him to make this pass, but not impossible. As the tires wear, it may open up an opportunity here. Beasley's been sitting behind, just trying to see what the 16 does. And you see, interestingly, even down the entire front stretch, Beasley's not running right behind him. He actually runs almost an entire lane off the very top. And I remember there was a time on iRacing, Kenneth, and you might remember this, where at Richmond Raceway, if you did the same thing, being easy on the throttle, staying a lane off the very outside, it saved your rear tires a pretty good amount. You see how he's not all the way up to the wall like the 16 is? I'm not sure if that's what it's doing the same thing, but I remember when it did that at Richmond, you can save so much rear tire. Good buddy of ours, Cole Williams, proved that to me, and it's remembered, and I've stuck with that all this time. It could be something Kip Beasley's trying to put to practice here.
And that's a deep cut right there. For those who are watching on the KBueno Racing Network and do not know the name Cole Williams, go look back at the iRacing Bunch of Lawn Care Series. Go look back at the LWRC NASCAR Cup Series. That's very early days on this KBueno Racing Network. I'm talking 2020, 2021, first several leagues that we ever covered. And Cole Williams, still a good friend of ours, very passionate iRacer back then. And watching Kip easily here as he continues to run in second. Matthew Perosini, give him credit. He's been able to stay up in this top 3 and maintain enough distance to Easley and Harlow, to which if these two get together, they start fighting side by side. Perosini can put himself in the right place, and they have overall gapped the Methuen, Massachusetts native of Steven Stepien, one of the co-owners of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, as we get the Charlie Byer photography onboard camera with him. Very good run in Las Vegas last week. Kind of spoiled a bit given the chaos that unfolded, the strategy that happened at the end, but Stempien's still able to come away with a reputable finish there, and the 88 machine searching for his first win since Worldwide Technology Raceway, back at the tail end of Season 1.
Yeah, that was a struggle Season 1 for Steven Stempien. He liked this kind of racing at these short tracks, intermediate style racetracks. He's been successful, he's been fast. Last season, you could say, okay, he was racing up against Lawson Peel, which just about everyone tipped their cap to when it came down to the end of the races. Now Lawson isn't in this field, but we still have a lot of really competitive drivers, so it's not exactly just a handy-down to Steven. He still has to go out there and do his work. And I know he likes this racetrack, Kenneth, but we all know the one he's looking forward to, New Hampshire. Wasn't that great of a run for him last season, but when we get there eventually, that's the one he's got circled on his calendar.
I like how you use the accent there, but I mean, if you talk to Steven Stepien, that is one of the more unique things about him. He's got that typical Massachusetts accent from up north. So I don't want to make it seem like it's a negative thing that we're making fun of him. He's a lovely fellow driver who has really stepped up here in 2026 to start. Of course, top 4 Las Vegas after starting 3rd, and some laps led up at the head of the field. And he's looking forward to seeing maybe this top 3 go at it with each other. If they end up doing so, that, of course, will give him the upper edge. He'll start to reel them back in on track time and, of course, be able to step into a solid position to maybe sprinkle himself back onto the podium. Richard Swavely sideways there off of turn 2. Just got a piece of the outside wall. Now we're 3 wide in 3. Cedric Hunter through the middle and Garrett Walden on the outside, but a scare for Richard Swavely, smacking the wall hard, but we stay green.
That's how quickly things can happen here around Iowa. You saw him have that moment, great save down the back straightaway to keep it pointed and lose minimal positions through all that. He'll fall down to 12th in this, but obviously a really good recovery. Now he has to kind of settle down. He's outside of the good pavement there, so he's maybe a little bit down on that 94 of Jesse Whittington, trying to keep 12th in that battle. But how about this 43 as well? We saw him put up a good run last week. Garrett Walden was on that alternate strategy with Matthew Perugini, and had it not been for the timing of the yellow flag, he probably could have caught a break on that occasion. Ended up trying to drive his way back into the top 10 of it all, but we'll see today with a fresh opportunity what that 43 can do.
Yeah, and he had a bounce-back effort. I mean, we talk about how far back in the field he was, found trouble maybe once or twice at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but chased the losses and came back with a big-time win. Walden being able to scrap away a solid finish at the end of that. Another car in the outside wall up in front. That's Muscarella. And so now, Francisco, I mean, just like Las Vegas, we're starting to see the problems overtake the drivers over the first several laps. And Alex Muscarella, the latest victim of the circumstance. He doesn't lose any track position, but that will help Cedric Hunter and the aforementioned Walden try and catch up. This is for inside of the top 10.
Yeah, and right now at this point in the run, we're going to start to see the difference in tires and tire saving, who done a better job than others, as up front it continues to be tight with Kip Beasley and Ross Harlow. All it takes is a slip up here by the 16 for that 8 to really make a charge down the inside and get side by side. That 96 has made a few attempts to get close to the back of the 8 as well, so he's not too far out of it. We see Brandon Banks staying in 6th and closing up to Matt Baines. We also see Jaden Porter slowly start closing up to the 23 of Van Schaik. This could quickly become an opportunity for the 28 and the 5 to start moving their way forwards. Again, with the fuel window being about 120 laps as the 8 loses the nose of his race car in the dirty air, this could be a one stop if we go green flag for most of the night. So when you make your pit stop is going to be just as important.
And we mentioned coming down at Iowa pit road speed limit isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. I mean, this is a short track, but you're still carrying a lot of speed in the middle of 3 and 4, that when you have to hit that transition from the newly repaved asphalt on the inside of the corner, and then that roughened asphalt that's just as old as this track in 2006 when it was made back then, you really have a task on your hands. And this car now with a lot of downforce on the underbody of the machine, so you've got to tether the line very, very carefully. Watch the 3-way battle for the top 6 as Matt Baines continues to lead this group. They had a bit of pressure put on the 5 of Brandon Banks, who has since pulled away in the top 5. And now Jaden Porter's Chevrolet is starting to breathe life once more. Sails on the outside of Baines, and Porter back into the top 6.
And this is what I had been talking about, the tires. It's probably the 82 who saved a little bit of better tire here. And now he's moved his way back up to 6. He's got Brandon Banks in front of him, someone who he had been sharing that kind of tire saving mentality with. So if they keep this up, they'll slowly start to close that gap, as look how tight it is further back there between Van Schaik, Muscarella, and Baines. They were nearly going 3 wide off to 2.
And all that, of course, for some crucial top 10 track position. Baines, as we mentioned, struggled last week, looking to pick himself back up. Cedric Hunter with a great finish last week and told us he was happy to get that finish and representing as the only Toyota in the field. That's a big shocker, Francisco. We talked about that pre-race, just how there aren't many Toyota drivers in this field, probably let alone any other than this driver right here that you're watching, as he makes a wonderful switchback move on the inside of Matt Baines here for 9th place. But everyone else bearing the bow tie of the Chevrolet, the prancing horse of the Ford Mustang, Cedric Hunter being really the only one bearing that Toyota logo. Japanese team a Japanese manufacturer stepping into NASCAR, a long-time manufacturer in the NASCAR Cup Series and O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and of course in the Craftsman Truck Series as well with their Toyota Tundra TRD Pros. And just like Hunter's race last week, it has been a struggle to pick up pace early, but just now starting to find pace as he watches the battle in the rearview mirror. Jesse Whittington under Matt Baines there for 10th.
You got battles all over the racetrack, Kenneth. There's so much going on right now. Through these different strategies, the front continues to be close. It could take one mistake as Perosini's kind of dropped off of that. You can see the gap forming up between 2 and 3. But I'm impressed with Kip Beasley's ability to stay this close to Ross Harlow. If there was any driver that maybe wasn't named Lawson Peel last season when it came to these shorter tracks, Ross Harlow's the one you think of as far as how much success he had at these types of racetracks. Got that win at New Hampshire last season. I believe collected another one later down the line as well. But he was always there inside the top 3 or so, contending in every single short track event that we were at last season. So to see him here up front isn't a surprise. So for Kip Beasley to be hanging with him, that is very much a good job by the 8 car.
And these are 2 drivers, of course. You know, you look at Steven Stepien, who is trying to take over the 3rd spot from Perosini. Still a solid gap between those 2. These are all veterans. These are drivers who have been racing with each other for so many years since 2020. I mean, this is before the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series was a thing. Back then, the Sunoco Cup Series, or as it was known back then in 2020, the MPI Cup Series, owned by Dakota Curtis, who drove this campaign in Season 1, not here with us in Season 2, but of course all the love and support to Dakota Curtis as he created this series, brought all of these drivers in. Over the years, they built up this community, and you look at drivers like Easley and Ross Harlow, and they have been a part of it almost all from 2020, have been able to develop relationships with each other, develop their skill as a race car driver in the sim, and of course keeping the spirit of this league alive with the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series in 2026. So it's veterans in the top 2 positions, and then of course in 4th with Steven Stepien. And then you look all the way back. This is the 75 machine of Christian Macrelli. He's a native of Italy, probably the first foreign-born driver not from Canada in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, so a native of Italy. Macrelli representing the North Sim Racing team and was part of our driver spotlight. Richard Swavely and the admins of DTH have been trying to get these driver spotlights in. Last week we had a good talk with Brandon Banks, of course Christian Macrelli, part of one of the driver spotlights here, and a brand new member for this Cup Series in 2026, and a driver that really I'm looking, Francisco, to see very much impress, and like a lot of rookie drivers, trying to make his name known in a field that has been knowing each other for many years and have a very tight connection. I mean, the story for Macrelli is fantastic, recovering from a serious accident, leaving him severely disabled, almost losing a leg, almost losing an arm, trying to cope as much as he can with his sim racing capabilities. And I mean, it's just wonderful to see that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what has befallen you in your life, someone like Christian Macrelli shows you the fight is still very much there, and you can have that fight. It's a wonderful story. He runs 22nd right now, but much like the rest of the rookie class, very impressive, and of course, very excited to see what he can cook up this year.
Yeah, it's one of those impressive stories, Kenneth, the story of Christian Macrelli. And having that leg amputated last July, that's never really a good thing when you have that situation happen with the nasty accident he had on that motorcycle. To be able to recover from that and face all the difficulties that come with dealing with a situation like he did, essentially with one arm and one leg, and still showing fight, appearing on these racetracks and getting things prepared for him, because these sims and the rigs, they're designed for a person that has both of their arms and legs. So for him to essentially have one of each and having to work with what he's got, he's doing a pretty good job here, and I'm sure that he's going to continue to work at it. It is relatively new for him since it did happen just a few months back. But to be in this position, Kenneth, there's plenty of people I know that they will struggle getting back into position. A real-life comparison in some form of fashion, I think you could say, of Robert Wickens, paralyzed from that Pocono accident back in 2018. It took him years to get back in a race car of any form, and the technology that's come from that accident, Kenneth, having the wheel-mounted accelerator and brake pedals essentially that he can control with his arms, so that he can control how much he's accelerating, decelerating, apart from just turning, since he can't use his feet. So I think that's the kind of stuff that could help a driver like Christian, the accident of Robert Wickens.
I think it's very cool. I mean, in a time where the ongoing Paralympics are continuing their festivities over Milano Cortina, you know, the fight, the powerfulness of those athletes to still rise up to the challenge and be the best that they can be in any given sport, despite their capabilities or despite some of their limits that they may have because of those disabilities, whether it be intellectual or visually impairment or, of course, physical impairment from the lower limbs or the upper limbs, the fighting spirit that they continue to have. I mean, the spirit of games like the Paralympics, I mean, I tend to like it a little bit more than the Paralympics just because it's so impressive and so lovely to see the spirit of those athletes, tremendous people and tremendous hearts that are competing on a world stage, and we hope that we can continue to share wonderful stories like that with Christian McCrelly, someone who likes to have the anthem of the International Football Club of Italy as his walk-up song. I'd say that's a pretty good song. With the ultras over there in Europe, with the soccer culture they've got over there in Europe as well, that is a banger to have to get you pumped up and ready for some racing in these NASCAR Cup Series cars on iRacing. We tune back into what's going on for the race lead. If you missed the action so far over the last few minutes, things have not changed in the fight for the top spot. Harlow and Kip Easley still separated by just a mere 0.2 of a second and closing. Those two have been right on each other's nose and tail the entire run. Matthew Perusini runs back in third. Steven Stepien runs in fourth. Brandon Banks, the points leader, currently wrapping up the top five. You get a good look at Jaden Porter, who runs behind the sixth place car of Cedric Hunter. Charles Van Schaik in eighth. Alex Muscarella holding on for ninth, but he's in a battle with Jesse Whittington in the 94 machine, and that is a returning name, someone who wouldn't be called so much a veteran in this likes of the DTH Cup Series. This is technically his first full season in 2026, but he was famously a part of one of the last seasons of the Sunoco Cup Series and got his reputation digging his teeth and being as safe as driver as he can be, but with a lot of natural speed, and here he is pointing underneath the 48 car for ninth.
Yeah, approaching 60 laps into this run. We're almost at the halfway point through this fuel window, and we haven't really seen a whole lot change, so a little bit close there between the 94 and 48. A lot of the drivers, generally speaking, appear to have done a decent job at saving their tires. This lead duo, to their credit, drove away, and they've driven away from the 96 in the meantime. They've kept this stronghold over most of the field. They're starting to catch up to a few laps of cars. That's the 75 of Christian McCrelly that they're going to get around as the 16 looks to go by on the inside. Has a bit of a moment there that could invite Kip Easley to close the gap. Not enough to make a move for the 8, but he does close in after that moment with the lap machine. But I was saying, Kenneth, that now we're starting to see if anybody saved their tires a little bit better, who that is. Fastest driver inside this top 10, and it is not close, is that 6th place machine of Cedric Hunter. He's now closing the gap on Brandon Banks. Just 0.3 quicker than your leaders on that last lap. That 45 is moving.
And that's what helped him late at Las Vegas just last week on Sunday. The way he was able to carry that late run speed and being able to move through the field, that is what's made this 45 car so special. Second in the championship fight last season at Homestead of Miami, and now just continuing to put himself in a solid position for what could be our first green flag stop sequence of the night. So we work lap 61 of 225 here from the Iowa cornfields in Newton. And when we mentioned the pit road sequence, I mean, you almost think about what it was at Las Vegas. We were dominated by long green flag runs. Sure, we had some of those yellows to break up the strategy and make it a bit more uniform in the way that drivers didn't really have to use their brains as much to come down. They would just all consensus be in for 4 fresh tires and fuel. Now here, you work on track position. This field is separated as largely as we've ever seen it over the first 3 races this year. What can you do now to differentiate yourself, and what is going to be either the proper undercut or overcut strategy, and how much of a difference do you want to have to the race leader? Let's say if you're anyone beyond second.
Not really much you can do right now, given the fact that there's the one pit stop that we're going to have to compete, and how far the field is getting strung out behind, say, the top 7 or so. And you don't really want to be too early on pit road, because yeah, you'll gain track position, you'll gain those spots, but you're going to spend like 100 laps, if that, at a disadvantage, Kenneth, and you don't want to spend 100 laps behind on the tire set, because yeah, you can save it, but that on iRacing, when you're talking about what laps you pit and the kind of tires that we got on the race car, if you're at 100 laps on a disadvantage, it's there the whole run, and it shows. We've seen that in the past. So you've got to be careful of when you come down pit road. The window will probably open, say, around lap 100, maybe lap 105. And the longest these guys can go is approximately 120 to 125. So there's about a 20-lap range there that we're soon going to enter where we can see green flag pit stops. And if it's me, I would try to split it right around the middle.
You know, we saw drivers like Matt Perusini in the later portions of that Vegas race stay out literally as long as he could. And it gave him an advantage at one point, and then you kind of ask the question, how long is too long when it comes down to staying out on the racetrack until, you know, you have to burn up all the tires, you use up all the fuel, you have to come down pit road. A lot of drivers will play very closely to that edge, but of course that's the magic of strategy. You can always take any option, and the world is kind of your oyster in that sense, where you can make those decisions and have it either pan out your way or, in some other drivers' case, and maybe not so swimmingly. Watching Warren Kyle Keith, first stepping in the top 10 tonight. What a drive it's been for the 24 machine of Keith. The St. Augustine Floridian started back in the top 13, top 15 of this race. And a brand new look for his Brandt Bass Pro Shops Ford Mustang Dark Horse as he looks forward to a battle between Van Schaik and Walden here for 8th place and trying to look possibly underneath 3 wide. In the middle of turn 3, gets underneath Van Schaik, but look at the detail on his number. And even on the yellow designs on the car. That is very reminiscent of what we've seen from a bit of Justin Allgaier in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Francisco, that's a corn texture. Very fitting for this Iowa race.
Yeah, that's the most ideal place you would want to run that and represent the corn here, and that's what Warren Kyle Keith is doing. He's from Florida, but he's making sure the Midwest is known, and here's a guy that's making the Midwest known. That's Cedric Hunter getting around Kip Beasley for the 2nd place spot. He's consistently 3/10 or so quicker than everybody else at the front of the field, Kenneth. He is half a second quicker than anybody in this top 5 that last lap. He is absolutely flying around this racetrack, and he is already closing the gap to your race leader. It could be a matter of 2 or 3 laps before he's the brand new race leader.
And then you ask, if Harlow is to be passed, when does he come down pit road? Will that be the calling card for the 16 of Harlow to make sure he closes out this long green flag cycle with some fresh Goodyear Eagles? There's the gap, and it is closing very, very quickly. We haven't really had a lead change all night long if you really don't count lap number 1. There was one proper lead change. That was on the opening lap before even the first corner. Harlow stepping out right in front of the pole sitter, Kip Easley. Now that Easley's gone out of the picture, he's back in 3rd. Cedric Hunter is tracking this 16 car down, still under a second between the two.
And an interesting one here. We have the 23 of Van Schaik now on pit road. He's the first one to bring it down the lane here tonight. A possible move to go for the 2-stop strategy. We know he can't go to the end with this pit stop, but it's a possible attempt to just try to use fresh tires to run as fast as possible. He was running around the edge of the top 10 as he pulls into his stall, and he has to back up a little bit. That's going to cost him a little bit of time, but we'll see if this brings anybody else down pit road in a few laps.
So there's a call for Van Schaik. 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. He'll be in and out. Nobody else so far comes in as the top 2 leaders curl around turn 4. Hunter still tracking this race leader down. Jaden Porter in the midst of a battle with Garrett Walden. Here's for top 7. And Warren Kyle Keith making an entry to the inside. There's near contact off of turn 4. And near drama for the first yellow as they stacked up off the final corner. Ray Rogers at the back end of that. Jaden Porter nearly getting sent away by Keith.
That was a close call. As you see, Porter now struggles in turn 2 as he tries to get wrapped under him. There's Ray Rogers now making the move for 9th. Porter was saving his tires earlier, but has not really reaped the benefits. Oh, there's another one right here. Kip Easley now down the pit lane. He was running 3rd. So this one really is going to make it interesting for your top 2.
So another fighter has called Kip Easley by himself on pit road. Kevin Roy appears to be in as well. His number 22 machine back in 17th. And Jesse Whittington,
Jaden Porter's in too.
Just being in the top 15, I believe he also had a part to play with. He's possibly missed his entry to pit road. Here comes Perusini in. You mentioned Jaden Porter. And now things are in a full swing at lap 75 as the gap remains under half a second between Hunter and Harlow. This is going to get good.
And I got to ask myself, Kenneth, I know that everyone's now seemingly jumping on board to this 2-stop strategy, and it makes sense given the fall off, but does anybody try the 1-stop? The 1-stop is definitely possible. It's not a stretch. It's just you're running so many laps out there on this set of tires, so we'll see if it works out. You don't want to short pit too early, and speaking of, there goes the 16. He's going to bring it down here on pit road on lap number 16 or 76. It's going to give the lead over to Cedric Hunter for the first time this evening.
So Cedric Hunter becomes the second lead change of the night here from Iowa Speedway and takes over as the fastest car on the racetrack for those that have stayed out up until this point. What a promising run for the 45 machine and the Canadian of Cedric Hunter as here comes Ross Harlow to the inside as he'll enter his pit stall. Very good qualifying effort. His teammate Steven Stempien coming in as well. And now you've got to watch the Jacks. 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. You cannot make any mistakes here. Cedric Hunter has come in pit road. And remember, this will be the fight for the net race lead. Of course, given that Brandon Banks doesn't go out ahead, Perusini had pitted early. Kip Easley had also been earlier than all of them. So Harlow comes out. Warren Kyle Keith goes by. And we've got to watch the blend off turn 2.
Yeah, it's important to see where he cycles out, and it appears the 16 is going to be in front of everybody else, so we'll have to watch the merge between him and Cedric Hunter off at turn 2 on this outlap. Out on the race lead is still the 24 of Warren Kyle Keith. 3 cars have yet to pit. It's himself, Matt Baines, and Casey Knighton. There's the 45, and there's your gap. The 16 will easily get around here in turns 1 and 2. He spins. He spins on the exit of pit road. He tagged the inside wall, but he keeps it going the right direction.
What a save by Cedric Hunter, but that is a dear mistake that will have him reset from square one. Cedric Hunter going sideways at the exit of pit road. And Francisco, I mean, it happens. You're going up to the gears. Again, it's a rough surface on the inside. There's the second look on the right side. What happened there?
Yeah, it looks like right here, there's going to be the exit line. The green line gets on the throttle. It just loses it from under. It doesn't hit the wall, actually, so no damage on the 45. Just going to be a lot of lost time. And I attribute that mostly, Kenneth, I think to the 750 horsepower. You've run so many races here with the previous package of cars that we've been racing for now for 3 years on iRacing since they've had this modern package. And you get that extra horsepower in, you just don't remember it's there for whatever reason on the exit of pit road under green, which you don't do that often anyways, and it just spins out from under you.
Tough situation there for Cedric Hunter that will bounce him back to 5th. He is now the leading car, a lap down. Of course, looking to unlap himself. Warren Kyle Keith, Matt Baines are the first 2 and the only drivers that have now yet to come into pit lane for their set of service. There's Steven Stempien, a 3-way fight now for what's going to be 7th on the racetrack. Kip Easley up the road, and Charles Van Schaik, one of the earliest pitters amongst the group in this field, to make their shot in. Matt Baines will come across the blend. Van Schaik makes the move up high, 3 wide, and flushing the 72 down at the exit of turn 4. What a move! Stempien makes his way underneath, and the fight for 7th, and now possibly 6th, will continue with Perusini in front.
And all that was going on. We have the 24 of Warren Kyle Keith in the pit lane for his scheduled service. That means the 72 of Matt Baines will now take over as the race leader. The only car yet to bring it down pit road. He's going on now his 84th lap at the cross and start finish line in this run. And I think the biggest thing he's hoping for is some kind of a caution flag with the different strategies going on. I'm sure he felt that somebody would cause an incident as Porter will lap himself there, and hoping that he can strike gold, get to pit under caution, and then have fresher tires in the competition ahead of him. So whilst he's still staying out, hoping for that same thing, doesn't appear like it's going to head in his direction, at least for the time being. He's continuing to bleed time. Eventually, we're going to see the 72 on pit road.
Well, does this look familiar to you, Francisco? Remember last week? Perusini staying out as late as possible. I think Baines is learning from the book there.
Well, I can't blame him. I mean, here in the KBueno Racing Network, how many times over the past 2 or 3 months, really in this 2026 year, have we seen caution flags come out during green flag pit stop cycles and really jumble up the field? So it's not a bad strategy to go for, really, especially this time of year. So we're seeing if it's going to work out for the 72. Right now, he is still in the lead. He has about 10 seconds on Ross Harlow before the 16 is able to catch and actually pass him despite making the pit stop. In which case, if that happens and the 72 hasn't been in, that probably will be his sign to come down pit road, Kenneth. But he hasn't yet, so that leads me to believe he's possibly attempting this one-stop strategy, in which case it might not be a bad call. If you think about it, before the pit stops, that 72 was running in the 6th position, I believe, and he was roughly 5-6 seconds behind the race leader. If he makes it down pit road around that similar gap, starts to gain on everybody, by the time they make their pit stop, it's going to be a bigger gap than when he first stayed out. So it's on the cards at the very least that if he doesn't lose too much time doing this strategy, then it could put him in a good position towards the end.
Well, he's got to wait, and he continues to stay out in front. Although the gap is crunching down, it is a mere 6 seconds between Baines and Ross Harlow, so just keep a keen eye on what Matt Baines can do, and when he blends back onto the speedway, will there be a possible advantage? Matt Baines, it appears, from the race lead is coming in off turn 4, so Ross Harlow will come back to circle to the race lead at the exit of the final corner. Brandon Banks curling around second, and now it's a 2-second advantage that Banks will have over Cedric Hunter back in third. So it didn't really bleed off that much, despite that mistake coming off of pit road, Francisco. And you think, I mean, a small mistake like that at a short track, it could very well be a killer. You could set yourself back by a lot of distance, and the drivers that are coming around could take advantage. But for Hunter to have picked himself up so very quickly after the mistake, you got to give credit to the relentlessness here for the Ontario native, and Hunter only back in third, basically where he was in the midst of his catch-up on the last part of that green flag stretch.
Yeah, and he pitted towards the back end of that cycle, so his tires are going to be slightly better than most of the cars around him. He has 12 laps on his set. The two in front of him have 13 and 14 respectively. How about Brandon Banks? Where did he come from to get up into second through this run? Parasini struggled. He was one of those first to pit, and he's now falling back a little bit. So is the 23 of Van Schaik. Those two a little bit off the pace when you compare them to the front runners, and you can expect them to continue to fall back as the tires are a little bit older on their machines. But Banks, who's namely over the last few weeks, Kenneth, across the different series that he participates in, has been putting in some better efforts. And you like to see this out of Brandon Banks. He went through a struggle in 2024 and 2025, was struggling to go to victory lane here in 4 wide as well. Got the win at Chicagoland last season, but a few weeks ago, he caught that win at Atlanta, and it opened the floodgates. He then proceeded that with a win at Daytona to open this campaign, and it's just been putting in those better results. He eventually pointed his way into the 4 wide playoffs. So to see Brandon Banks continuing this positive run of momentum, it's really a change of pace from what he's been having to go through over the past 2 years.
And also when he broke open with that late season win at Kansas last campaign here in DTH Cup action that put him in the championship run. So he could have very well have won a championship. You know, we saw the miraculous nature of Zachary Hall, winless that season, to go out and win the title. I mean, Brandon Banks had given him a shot to be basically in that same seat, to run for a title at the end, and this is what we know Brandon Banks to be. Classic Brandon Banks in old 4 wide was stuff like this, and he just continues to harness a level of consistency that rewards him in a format like this, where you finish well each and every week, and even if you don't stand out as the winningest driver out there, even though you very well could win yourself in to a championship, if you do stuff like this and you keep your head down and you keep your composure tight each and every week, this is what is going to happen. You're going to have good finishes, you're going to have a clean race car, and of course, when it comes down to the season finale at Charlotte, if you can point yourself into a championship spot, that's what Brandon Banks wants. He is the points leader going into tonight, of course, with that win at Daytona, a runner-up placement last week at Las Vegas, and on track for another second-place run here at Iowa Speedway. He certainly isn't faster than Ross Harlow right now, but Francisco, given the track record of this 5 car, you give himself a long enough run, you give him some notes from the last run, and he could very well cook with that and make a good meal out of it.
Yeah, if he keeps this up, Brandon Banks is definitely going to set himself up in position. He's only about a second off the race leader. That last lap was 3 tenths quicker. I think Ross Harlow is working lap traffic right about now, so that explains the deficit there. And obviously, you're going to have to contend with that 45 of Cedric Hunter on these long runs, so you can't exactly keep him out of it. There's the onboard with that Hello Kitty machine. He has eyes on both the race leaders just ahead. Steven Stempion's managed to hang on to 4th in this whole process, and really the whole field's strung out. There's really nobody in this top 10 that's as close as maybe the battle for 7th. That's Kip Easley and Jaden Porter. Jaden Porter now looking to the inside of the 8 machine, takes that position away relatively easily. Outside of that, Kenneth, it is very much spread out, so it's all about making sure the tires are good and not making mistakes.
Great look on board with Hunter as he gets through this lap traffic. You can very well see the identity of this Iowa Speedway. A mix of the old and the new, of course, here in 2025, and the brand new iRacing update that brought this and a lot of other NASCAR tracks to life. I mean, it was great to see how much of the work iRacing had put in after forming iRacing Studios and making the brand new NASCAR 25 video game that brings NASCAR into the light of console games for the first time in a little while now, over a few years since NASCAR Ignition 21 came out. But doing that, of course, reflecting the brand new schedule, the laser scan tracks on iRacing and bringing them here to all the drivers on the sim. So as a result, we get this brand new Iowa Speedway, and we're going to see that over the next few weeks. North Wilkesboro's coming back. That will be the new refreshed North Wilkesboro track that we've yet to see on the KBueno Racing Network. Echo Park Speedway, we saw it last season as a refreshed venue. It has been refreshed just a tad further to add in some of the refinements for 2025. And then, of course, you have the Rockingham Speedway. Of course, still a question mark as to whether we'll run the brand new surface of the Rock versus the old surface from 2012 that a lot of drivers on the sim have come to know and love across the sphere. However, we'll just keep an eye on that. Very exciting stuff for the rest of 2026 here in this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. And so far, an exciting run for Ross Harlow. He has been the de facto dominator all night long here from the cornfields in Newton. You're watching coverage of race number 3 of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series action from Iowa. We'll be right back on the KBueno Racing Network.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
These Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat. There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
And back live from the virtual Iowa Speedway as we continue on lap 107 of the 225 and just a little under 200 miles here from Newton, Iowa, as we continue race 3 coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series in its second full season with the Corn 225 powered by Weather. Glad to have you with us. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you as you watch the race leader continue to put himself in the motions. Ross Harlow has been the dominant car of the day, started outside of the front row and took the lead before we even crossed the timing line for turn 1. Above Kip Easley, he has been dominant so far, and he's led the field through the first stretch of green flag pit stops coming to lap 110. Brandon Banks is not too far away, 8/10 behind in second place, the points leader and the winner from Daytona this season, trying to continue his run of top 3 efforts in 2026 and go for 3 for 3 on that effort. And he's getting chased down by Cedric Hunter, the Canadian who finished in the top 3 last week at Las Vegas, has been the fastest car over the long green flag runs. He's going to try and tally that back up even after a shallow mistake there, coming off of pit road on his first and only pit stop of the night. Steven Stepien has been very comfortable running inside the top 4. That's where he's been for a bulk of this race. Matthew Perusini, although he had a strong start on the podium, has fallen back to 5th. 6th place goes to Jaden Porter, the winner from last week at Las Vegas. 7th going to Ray Rogers in a current battle with Charles Van Schaik at 7th and 8th. There they go in turns 1 and 2. Kip Easley, the pole sitter after a strong start and hanging behind Ross Harlow for a good portion of that opening run. He has fallen shy after being on the earliest set of tires than everyone else in the field, now more worn than everyone else in front in 9th, and Garrett Walden, the Walmart Chevrolet, rounding out the current top 10. So we're approaching the official halfway mark of tonight's race from the cornfields of Iowa. Really glad that you're joining us here on the KBueno Racing Network. We have really shaped up into a very busy schedule. Not only do we have DTH Cup Series action, if you were with us just a few days ago, the Thursday night weekly league, the SAC Cup Series, they were just out there not that long ago. And going to the Pocono Raceway as of the next week. We'll have an off week for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. They're entering their Season 8 playoffs. Brandon Banks going to be one of those drivers, a part of that. Jaden Porter as well. And a bit of the crossover between this league and that one. And, of course, the KBRN Truck Series back in action in the following day after tonight. So on Monday, you'll have action from the world's fastest half mile, Bristol Motor Speedway, before the iRacing update kicks off on Tuesday. And then we'll be racing in Mexico City the week after that. And Francisco, that iRacing build, I mean, a lot of leagues take time off for that because, of course, you know, iRacing is an ongoing service. So any update that goes on, you're going to have changes in the servers, changes in the fundamental aspects of the sim, and sometimes it goes wrong. You know, developers are going to face that every single time they update something. There are going to be some gremlins, some bugs. So leagues, especially like 4Wide, try to avoid the Tuesday slot just because they don't want any incidents to maybe affect those leagues moving forward. But there are a lot of exciting things, Francisco, in this new build. Some great content, but also some great quality of life fixes in the UI too.
Yeah, a few things to really talk about there, Kenneth. Firstly, I'm glad that we're seeing this growth of the KBueno Racing Network. We got so many series to talk about here in the next couple of months. We got Droppin the Hammah on our Sunday nights, the Truck Series going on Monday nights. The 4Wide playoffs are coming up, so that's going to be fun to watch, and obviously the SAC Cup Series. So we've got a very busy week going on here in KBueno Racing Network. Be sure to join our social media pages if you want to watch and see what's upcoming on the schedules as well, what times those will be, who will be on the call, and all that. But that iRacing build, Kenneth, it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to have the Ram truck imported. Surely some guys tomorrow that run on Monday nights are going to probably debut it over at Mexico City in 8 days. And also we'll be having at least what I'm looking forward to the most out of the content is St. Petersburg. I got to go over to that race last weekend. I got to join you in the booth after getting home from that event. And let me tell you, seeing that track in person and then a few days later it getting added into the sim, it'll be fantastic to drive with the Truck Series machines, the IndyCar machines, and any other car really that you might question into driving there on iRacing. So that's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most. I'm going to start petitioning leagues to maybe include that in their schedules after driving it, seeing if it's any good. But there's also other stuff. There's the GTEs are getting their overhauls done. They're getting wet tires as well. A few artwork refreshes to certain racetracks as well. But you also got to toss in a kind of sleeper in the notes, if you read it, is the NASCAR O'Reilly Series cars receiving an aero update. We don't know quite the extent of what they said. It was about a sentence or two that they really mentioned, so we're going to see how big of a difference it is compared to what it was now in a few days' time. But hopefully they can make it a little bit more accurate. It's been a while since we've seen the B card used here on an iRacing league on the KBueno Racing Network, and I'm sure we can definitely use a B car series here soon. That way we get a better flux of rotation between Cup cars, trucks, and Xfinity, and maybe even an add of the IndyCar.
That's true. If you're watching on the KBueno Racing Network, be sure to let us know what your favorite NASCAR vehicle is. Is it the Cup car you're watching right now? Is it the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series cars? Is it the Craftsman cars? Maybe even if you want to go as far as the ARCA machines or even Wheel and Modifieds, you can go as far and wide as you like. But we do want to hear from you. Your favorite NASCAR vehicle is. You watch Cedric Hunter get a dive on the inside of Brandon Banks, makes that completed pass for a second. So this reignites the storyline we were propping up right before the green flag stop scenario happened. Can Cedric Hunter be the first driver to fulfill this prophecy of beating Ross Harlow on the racetrack, who has so far been right now unstoppable as he worries with the lap traffic up in front? But you're right. A lot of the great updates for iRacing coming up next Tuesday. It's only 48 hours from now, so we will get the initial release notes, all of the updates that the iRacing development members have brought into the sim. Of course, new UI changes, so you could have a lot of just fundamental things for people who run iRacing on a daily basis. They get to have a bit more detail to the way they drive, telemetry. You know, they can really dive into the details of how serious they want to get about the analysis of how they drive and how fast they go, and maybe the little things they can do to make these cars faster and be a little bit better on the racetrack. That's seemingly what Cedric Hunter is doing right now. He is finding any bit of the advantage he can get on Ross Harlow, and that gap now is under half a second. But St. Petersburg, seeing that race with the NASCAR Craftsman trucks, I mean, some people thought, Francisco, that it was going to be a snoozer. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I did see some of the commentary around that race, and Some people thought it was going to be a crapshoot. Some people thought it was not going to be a successful little race. But let me tell you, those trucks put on a show. We had great racing at the front, very difficult style of driving on the street course and on an active runway as well in St. Petersburg. I mean, that's really cool. So great that iRacing has put that hard work to scan the track and now get it on iRacing, not just for the NASCAR fans, but for the IndyCar fans that with the refreshed Barber and the refreshed IR18, they're going to get a lot of great updates as well.
Yeah, and hopefully that means going forward to get a few more of those IndyCar style tracks onto the schedule. Some may be a little bit more difficult, but we've been tossing around the Arlington Grand Prix that they'll be going to next week. Maybe that's something that iRacing decides to delve into if they continue reinvesting into their IndyCar program after getting the license back. The Washington, D.C. race that we're going to be seeing in August as well. Maybe some refreshes as far or bringing into the service the likes of Toronto, the new Detroit racetrack. Those will definitely be interesting if they work on those over the next handful of years. Maybe some will be easier to get to than some others. But we're definitely seeing iRacing going in that direction with their IndyCar program. They updated the IR18s to be more accurate with the hybrid system. And honestly, I think if someone came up to us, Kenneth, and offered us an IndyCar series or something IndyCar related, I think we'll both jump at the bit at that. It's very interesting to watch this IndyCar series. You had the opportunity to cover the Pro Series, and I think it really gave you a good feeling of watching those cars go around the racetrack. They were mostly road courses, but I know you enjoyed it.
Yeah, those were fantastic cars. I mean, that's an underrated machine on iRacing, and I'm honestly really glad that it's getting its recognition on the sim, not only because of the refreshed updates that we're having on the sim now, but because iRacing is going to be working on the IndyCar 26 video game. So they will have a lot of opportunities to scan the IndyCar schedule and bring in the life and spirit of IndyCar racing as the premier open wheel series in the United States. Back to action on the racetrack, though. It is getting spicy. Cedric Hunter putting on a run of a lifetime. He is still faster than Ross Harlow. He'll point the nose to the inside for the lead in turn one.
Harlow's been leaving enough of a gap on the inside that has given Hunter the ability to take it. They're catching up to lap traffic. 3 cars ahead, and there's the 07. They're going to split them.
And that's Laurie Vincent
What a
right
move.
in the middle. What a charge from the 2 race leaders. And they've got to get around one more. Muscarella blocking Cedric Hunter on the inside, but that is not enough to stall the 45 car. New race leader from Iowa Speedway.
What a move, Kenneth, to go around the lap car in the middle. It was a fantastic job to get to the inside of Ross Harlow. We'll see if we can get another look at it here. He did a good job of getting down to the bottom that the 16 had been leaving for him, and he found enough grip. He remained on the inside all the way down the back straightaway, and then going into turn 3 where it looked like it was going to be a difficult spot after the 07 had his troubles. Both of them thought, oh boy, I can't lose time here. So what do? They just go right through on both ways and rolling the bottom like if he wasn't even there. The 45 is almost able to clear him off the corner despite the 48 kind of being in the way in turn 1.
And by the way, Muscarella and Ross Harlow, they're teammates at DTH. They are ones to work well with each other. Muscarella just went a lap down, and still the 16 car has not been able to get around the 48. So that leaves Cedric Hunter with an over half a second advantage. And lap 134 of 225 from Iowa, our second lead change under green. And apart from those green flag pit stops, have allowed Cedric Hunter to become the main contender in his search for his first win of 2026. And now he's got a comfortable gap, 0.7 of a second, and still faster by nearly 0.3.
That's very much what we saw in the first run out of this 45 machine. Just was able to be so fast after about 50 or 60 laps. Just nobody really in comparison to him. The fuel window's open. If you pit now, you can get to the checkered flag as the caution flag waves.
And the first yellow comes out of the night after the longest green flag run of the season at 135 laps. There's trouble on the speedway, and the first yellow flies. And that will help Ross Harlow.
It's not often where a yellow flag comes out, Kenneth, and you're like, wow, that was a genuine wow. I don't know. That caught me by surprise.
So 135 laps of crunch down racing And now halted by our first yellow flag thrown of the night. There was trouble. It was Lauren Vincent spun around at the exit of turn 2. So remember, the car that had been flushed in the middle 3 wide. Unwillingly, this bright orange 07. Vincent's going to come out of pit road. He just came down for a set of tires, and the same mistake catches him the way it did for Cedric Hunter, just way later, and comes around to stall on the inside of the racetrack. That is technically out of the racing line. But you see that white line that goes away at the exit of turn 2? That is the difference between the racetrack and the apron. So technically nose ahead on the actual racing surface. That's enough for iRacing Lee Adamans to determine that a yellow flag. And here come the leaders on pit road for the first time under yellow.
We're definitely going to see 4 tires here by just about everybody. They were almost due for a pit stop. They went about 70 to 80 laps on their opening stint and had been about 60 since. And here's the race off pit road. No contest as Kip easily overshot his pit stall by a large margin. It's the 45 that continues to keep the top spot here. Brandon Banks will settle into 3rd. And this kind of feels like a race break, Kenneth. We had that long run. Everybody got their feel for him. And now this bunches everybody back up. So we're going to see what this does for the whole field. Who this could give second life to. I know Harlow's going to really appreciate that. He just gotten past for the lead. Now he gets to try and go back at it.
Ross Harlow, who's been the dominant car of the night, gives away the lead, but with this caution, we'll be right back on a level playing field, and the most important thing, on the same set of Goodyear Eagles, so no more differences here after our longest green flag stretch brought us some strategy. We're joined by Ross Harlow right now, running in P2. Ross, you got a copy?
Yeah, loud and clear, Ken.
All right, Ross, well, this has been the best race for you this year. 117 laps led. You've been the dominant car of the night here at Iowa. What has been the secret to success so far in this first half?
Oh, it's just patience. It really is. You know, it's easy to get frisky, get racy with guys. You just got to be able to lay back, kind of let them ride. You know, don't do anything wild and crazy. Be steady on the wheels, steady on the brakes.
You know, I don't know if this is a good thing to tell you or it's a good thing for us, but we've got a race now. This is all out for the race lead. You had Cedric Hunter chasing you down there on the last run. Yellow came out. Now you guys are on even sets of Goodyear Eagles. What is it going to take to retake the lead, go up against Hunter here on the restart?
It's always a battle with him. Cedric's a hell of a driver. I really think, he's really locked in for the long run. I don't think I can do much about that. Tried something a little funky that last pit cycle just to see if something would stick, and if anything, it hurt the car. So we're kind of back to status quo for this one.
All right, Ross. Well, this car has been bad fast all night long. Ready for the restart, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thanks, boys.
That is Ross Harlow, driver of his number 16 machine for Droppin the Hammah, one of the big teams here, a part of this DTH Cup Series. And he's going to try and have Cedric Hunter flinch on this restart. He will not be the control car for the first time, as Kip Easley led us through the initial start. And remember, it was a bobble from Easley that allowed Harlow to step out ahead into turn 1. It was not a restart violation. They both went at the same time. Harlow just had the better speed going through the gears. How will it shape out here on our first green flag restart of the night? Going through the restart zone, Harlow's got Hunter pressed side by side for the lead in turn 1.
That was an interesting choice by the 45 to wait until the green lights, and it's proving dividends because that means everybody can go at the same time, and Harlow's going to clear on the outside.
Hunter still fights back on the inside, but the Till Valhalla Project Chevrolet forces his way back to the front. Ross Harlow stamping back in the race lead, but it is not done yet to turn 1. Hunter's going to have a response as Brandon Banks and Perosini go at it for third behind them.
I think Mayer, much like we've seen all night long, that 45 is going to be a little bit patient. But look at this run off of turn 2. It's a great acceleration off the corner. He's back to the inside. Harlow gives him the space. We've seen that 16 be strong on the short runs, and he's going to have to fight for it if he wants to keep the lead. They remain door to door as off of turn number 4. They're also side by side for third.
Battle for the lead again, and this time Hunter is probably in the worst position, being on the inside with a car on the top, pressing you down. Perosini getting swallowed by the pack. Brandon Banks steps ahead in third. Hunter fights back on the inside, looking for a way through, but Ross Harlow defends property again, maintains the lead, and the gap is still within a car length to turn 1. The fight's not done.
Yeah, but he has to surrender at least for now. so he doesn't work those tires way too much and has something on these long runs. We've seen him been able to save his tires the best. If he tries to be too aggressive early, he might not have that kind of advantage you've seen him have all night long. So for the 45, I think for the time being, just kind of sit back, try to keep your stuff under you, and play the patient game. You can still get around. There's no required pit stops between now and the checkered flag, and there's enough laps in it that it gets to the point in the run where he can just go by and drive by everybody. We're approaching now 81 laps to go in this race, and we've seen him after the lap 50 or 60 mark. That's when he gets about 2-3 tenths quicker than everybody. So there's still a chance for this 45, but even on this short run, he's doing a good job of just staying close enough. And how about this? Jaden Porter's moved up to third.
Is the highest we've seen Jaden Porter in a little while. He's been in the top 10 for a majority of the night, and now stepping underneath Steven Stempien. A blast from light from the Chevy Accessories car. A bit of contact there in turn 3, but he's around now.
Yeah, as soon as Porter got up to third, he went to the bottom. Stempien stayed in the middle, and that really launched him off the corner. He's been working that middle outer groove to make up some time, and now he's almost on the back bumper of Cedric Hunter.
Looking for a way in. Stempien with a poor start to 26, but then bounced back in a great way. Top 5 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and shared a top 5 with those two drivers kind of right in front of him. Although Ross Harlow finished in 6th, it was still close enough for a top 5 run. And the DTH Chevrolet teammates are putting Cedric Hunter in the sandwich right now through the middle. And Ross Harlow continues to stay up. Here comes Hunter back to the bottom as Ross Harlow bounced off of turn 2. Can Stempien give any help to the 16 in the fight for the lead?
That transition has been a little bit harmful to the 16 off of turn 2 on a few occasions now. It's been opening the door to Cedric Hunter, but for now, using that outer groove, that 16 is able to not only clear but go back down to the bottom and keeps the top spot. But that kind of move of going from the middle to the bottom like that is not going to be helping his tires up at all in this situation. And Stempien, as soon as he got behind Hunter, has not been aiming to make a pass, at least not yet. Being a little bit patient, hoping that the 45 can make a mistake and be ready to pounce if and when he does. How about Warren Kyle Keith, Kenneth? He's also gotten himself up into this battle. He's in 6th now, behind the pair battling for 4th of Matthew Parasini and Jaden Porter.
Yeah, he's done a great job of working through the field. Probably the lowest starter of any one of these drivers in around the top 10 and even the top 5. The way Warren Kyle Keith had to scrap through to get his way to the front over the longest green flag run of the night when we nearly went caution-free until the spin by Lauren Vincent, and Kyle Keith settles on the outside of Jaden Porter. He'll make the move, switch around. First time we've seen that 24 car inside the top 5. So we get a look at the left side of your screen. You're on board with Cedric Hunter running 2nd right now. And the biggest difference I've seen, Francisco, is the difference in gear selection. So with this next-gen car going into the idea and the implementation of sequential shifters, you can now shift down at the road courses, obviously, but you shift down at the shorter tracks and even the intermediates, and that plays a big role in driving style and tire saving. Look at Stempien shoot by on the outside lane, but Hunter is not using 5th gear. While Ross Harlow and Steven Stempien are shifting up to 5th, Cedric Hunter has remained in 4th throughout the entire journey around the speedway. Why is that as a driver?
That's an interesting one here, because if you stay in 4th gear, you hear the chip. So we'll remain on board here with Hunter if we can, back to turn number 1, and you'll listen to it. So there he is now in 4th gear, and just sit and listen until he brakes for turn 1. Yeah, right there he hits the chip. So he gets to the end of the gear, but he doesn't move it up to 5th. The other drivers maybe move it up to 5th as a way to carry out more speed, but now under braking, makes it a little bit more sketchy. If you shift up to 5th, and we'll do it this time with Steven Stempien, when he goes up to 5th here into turn 1, it makes it a little bit sketchier under braking. And let's listen here.
Also no shifting from Stempien.
Okay, so yeah, it looks like he may have learned it, and it's helping him right now make these moves. So and that's something I found in practice. It's right on the edge of being 4th gear or even 5th gear. You might go up to 5th if it meant getting you some more speed, but it makes the car unstable under braking when you're downshifting and turning at the same time. So that's probably why you wouldn't. At least in this case, it appears that's why it's working.
Well, for Ross Harlow, I mean, we've been on board with him several times tonight, and you'll hear that car reach the limit in 4th gear on the main straightaway, and then he'll shift up to 5th for about a split second before immediately going back down to 4th. So it's kind of that awkward placement with the gear ratio and the setup with this car. Looking at, do you want to stay at the high end of 4th, or do you want to go to the low end of 5th just for maybe a second or two before you ultimately get back to the braking zone in turn 1. I mean, that's just a wonderful dichotomy, and you're seeing the difference between the two teammates, and now Stepien has a breath of life in him. This is the highest we've seen him run all night.
Same deal with Warren Kyle Keith, who has gotten past Perosini for 4th, and now is to the outside of Hunter, trying to take 3rd.
And he get there. Warren Kyle Keith coming out of a cannon. There he is, pointing from the high side, and he's going to bring Perosini with him. And the Ford Mustang breaks in on the troop of Camrys and Chevrolets to put himself in the top 3. What a move by Keith.
And when you think about season 1 and how that went for Warren Kyle Keith, it was disappointment after disappointment when it comes to how close he gotten to race wins. I think one of the ones that disappoints him the most is that finish to Daytona. He crossed the line and he thought, oh, I absolutely just barely got this win. No, Lawson Peel through the grass by 1/1000th of a second, got the win. And he was heartbroken when he found out a few moments later that that was not his race to win. So still searching for that win is Warren Kyle Keith. And after an amazing performance to drive his way through the field, he's putting himself in position with about 67 laps to go in this race to possibly capture that elusive win.
Pair of 18th place finishes to kick off this year at Daytona and at Las Vegas, although there were some really promising runs in Vegas last week on the 1.5 mile. And something that Keith told us in an interview during that race was, I'm going to keep ripping the boards. That's something that this driver is known for doing in this league. And with this collection of drivers, that plenty of them he's known for years now, from the Sunoco Cup Series and then its end, and then driving the 2 seasons of DTH action this year and last year. You know, he's a driver that's willing to take risks. He's not afraid to go up high. He's not afraid to try the things that other drivers wouldn't really want to attempt. And he's here with a chance to maybe scrap into top 2 or maybe take the race lead for the first time tonight on a team that has been a little more shorthanded this year. And really tonight at Iowa, no Parker Bland that we don't see in the field right now. Of course, Richard Swavely has been part of the group. James Kunkel is there as well. He's back in 17th. Richard Swavely, who had nearly a moment earlier on tonight, is 2 laps down in 21st. But this has been the spearheading effort for this SKM team. And Keith tracking down Stepien and Harlow, the 2 DTH teammates. And now you ask the question, Francisco, you're any one of these 2 at the front. Stepien has been aggressive, nearly dealt the chrome horn to Harlow for the lead not that long ago. Coming to 63 laps to go. You see this car in your rearview mirror. Do you work together, or is it just everyone for themselves at this juncture?
It kind of ends up becoming everyone for themselves in a situation like this, knowing how important the clean air is. There's not really much you can do to work together. It's very difficult in this position to do that. I think Stepien, the biggest thing he's hoping for is that Keith doesn't attack him and force him to have to defend and takes away from his ability to try to go after the 16. I think the biggest thing he wants is some kind of breathing room. He's not really getting it right now, but for now, he's not immediately having to fend off the 24 either left or right hand side, and it's just about how close can he get to the 16 and put him under pressure. And right now you see it's sometimes a car length, sometimes half a car length, but he's not willing to change lanes, not yet. And if he does so, he could possibly get around. It's how he's gotten up to 2nd and 3rd, but he makes a little bit of a slip in 3 and 4. Now Keith is to the inside.
You'll look for 2nd. Stepien gives way in 1. And Warren Kyle Keith to a race-high 2nd place with a chance to snag the race lead away from Ross Harlow in a few moments. Here's Matthew Perosini. High side look on Cedric Hunter. And the short run speed is not working out for the Canadian right now. I mean, still within reaching distance of the top running 3. And as they continue to battle, I mean, that will help 4th and 5th stay within a range to attack when need be. But Perosini looking for his best career DTH Cup Series finish after his best came last week at Las Vegas in a top 15. Now a top 5 could be in the cards for this 96 car on the outside of Hunter with still so much of this race left to go. You almost think Hunter probably saving right now given the circumstance.
Definitely saving for the 45 right now. He tried to see if he could take the lead, and as soon as he realized he wasn't able to, he backed off the pace and is trying to see if he can save tire life for the later portion of the race. It's kind of what we discussed earlier, that about 50 or so laps into the run, that's where he definitely looks at his best. That's when he seems to be faster than everybody. We're approaching 30 laps into the stint now, so we're still a bit of ways from that, but certainly within the realm of possibility that we'll get there soon enough, and that'll be the prime opportunity for him to try and go back to this race. And he's well within reaching distance. He's only 1 second behind the fight for the lead, Kenneth. And when he got up there to the top spot, he was what, 5 seconds off the lead as soon as he started rattling off those quick lap times. So being where he is right now, no concern.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, he made up clearly over a second and more in his journey to the race lead over Ross Harlow. So a second right now isn't necessarily insurmountable, especially now that he's single file. He's got a bit of elbow room back to Jaden Porter, and Ray Rogers looking for his best finish of the season so far, running inside the top 7. And Warren Kyle Keith is not giving this up right now. He is not holding back any punches on the race leader. With 56 laps to go, the Floridian is on the heels of taking the lead for the first time here at Iowa Speedway. He's been dealt some blows by Steven Stepien, and now add a 4th car into the mix. Matthew Perosini is the fastest of the main 4.
I gotta ask the question, Kenneth, if any of these front runners are thinking about a possible strategy call in case the yellow comes out here at any point between now and the next 55 laps. We're seeing how tight these cars are, how tight of a setup it is. We talked about what the remedy for that is. Does anybody do it if we get a late race yellow?
I like how you didn't mention it, but it is 2 tires. Jaden Porter did it to success last week at Las Vegas. Is that the ploy for any one of these 4? Maybe 5, maybe 6. It could be a large list of cars that make that gamble. And maybe someone from the mid-pack who hasn't shined all night long can put themselves right in the heart of this action and find themselves with a win. Still a long way to go. 53 left here from Iowa. Once we cross the start-finish line, it's Ross Harlow, the race leader, with a trio right behind him of Warren Kyle Keith, Steven Stepien, and Matthew Perosini. That has since separated between the battle for 3rd and 4th. Cedric Hunter, former race leader in this event, back in the top 5, running cleanly in front of Jaden Porter in 6th. Ray Rogers back in the 7th position. Garrett Walden running for a top 10 in 8th. Charles Van Schaik has had a strong Ford Mustang throughout the evenings of activities. He's in 9th. And Brandon Banks, a race low 10th. Given his circumstances so far, has not been able to climb up through the field and be in this top 5 like we've seen him for the good majority of this race tonight. And still so much left to decide. At least one more pit stop if we continue to stay green. Remember, we saw that pit window at around 65 to 70 laps, so there could still be a chance for all of these drivers to have a money stop and make a large amount of time in just a few seconds. But really, this is reminiscent of the opening run, Francisco. Ross Harlow hasn't necessarily given a gap to these 2 behind him, and Warren Kyle Keith with a monstrous run at the exit of turn 2. He's got the nose on the outside at turn 3.
He just about made contact off of turn 2. He clips the bottom. Warren Kyle Keith should have the momentum off of turn 4, but Harlow's hanging in there, trying to fight to keep this top spot alive. We know how difficult of a pass it is to get around that 16, but look at the momentum. Keith carries off a 2, almost gets there, really close quarters, as Ross Harlow's trying to do everything he can with the side draft to keep that 24 at bay. Oh, Keith drifts up a little bit. That's going to bring Harlow back into it. They just can't clear one another.
And the bread and butter for Warren Kyle Keith has been this upper register here in the corner, staying in the middle, holding on to the higher lines. Now here, almost clear Harlow at the exit of 2. 16 car will keep him honest. At the exit of 2, they nearly make contact again. Keith is out in front. Stepien pushes forward. Warren Kyle Keith to the race lead at Iowa Speedway.
Almost, as I think just barely, Harlow's trying to keep the nose in there to get the space he wants. And he tries to close the gap, but he gets the bumper.
And there's the touch. Ross Harlow back underneath. Steven Stepien with the help. And no one can beat the 24. Warren Kyle Keith takes control from Iowa.
It wasn't enough. Harlow was hoping to get the space, didn't. Tried to get the bumper to see if he'd give him the room, but Keith does a great job of taking the lead.
And now is there a breakaway moment for the Floridian? Gap is at the largest it's ever been. 0.3 of a second off of a bobble off of turn 2. And is there a response? Coming to 46 laps to go. Remember, Cedric Hunter is still back in 5th. He's about a second and 0.3 behind the race leader. Although he's lost touch of the rest of the 3 that trail behind this 24 car. Stepien has not made a move on his fellow teammate, and Perosini, although he's been close enough, has not been able to break free of the shackles that DTH has held on for now second and third. Warren Kyle Keith is breaking away and still the fastest car in the top 5.
Yeah, it was 2/10 as soon as he got by, and that last lap was half a tenth quicker than the 16, and he's already putting some more time on this particular lap. So even if it's just a little bit each and every lap, he was faster, and he was proving it by how close he was staying and the moves he was trying to make. And I think the biggest thing that was going through Warren Kyle Keith's mind is, I have to take the lead now and put on a gap before Cedric Hunter starts to lap faster than everybody else. And sure enough, on that lap, Hunter matched the leader and was faster than the 3 cars in front of him. So that 45 soon here in a handful of laps, we're getting close to that 50 lap mark on this stint of tires as Stepien peaks to the inside of Harlow. A little bit of a tap there. Doesn't do much to the 16, but the 88 lost a little bit of ground. Now Perosini's going to look to his inside for the 3rd spot. But this is getting right into that range of Cedric Hunter slowly becoming one of the faster cars on the racetrack.
Stepien telling his teammate, hey, let's go to the inside of turn 3. Now he'll look for second on his teammate there on the bottom. And Ross Harlow has given him the space and the clearance. They have been able to separate from Perosini, so just a solid move there. DTH teammates hand in hand, probably in communication with each other in that sequence. James Kunkel at Ford Mustang, sponsored by Progressive, on the high side. And that's one of the lap machines. He just came down pit road, so on a fresh set of Goodyear Eagles to try and end this race with 41 laps to go. And Keith is enjoying a gap that just continues to elevate, Francisco. That was a poor corner number 4 for Steven Stepien. Gap now down to 7/10, but it's grown just a little bit from that tiny mishap off of turn 4.
Yeah, at least he got by the 16, who's now really starting to fall back as we're getting longer into this run. We haven't really seen Ross Harlow in traffic that often in this race, only really behind the 45, and it hasn't even been for that long before a like pit stop or a caution flag in the previous run's instance. So this is the first time he's properly back in traffic, and he's struggling to maintain speed. He's running now a bit slower than he had been previously, and he's got Matthew Perosini on his tail here in a matter of a few laps. Stepien trying to see what he can do out with the clear air, and that last lap was a lot better, 2/10 quicker than your race leader on the previous lap. Let's see at the cross of the start finish this time, a little bit more matched, the favor in the hands of the 24, but definitely a lot better now that he's clear of the 16.
You know, the racing has been so good, Francisco, I almost completely forgot. We still have a pit stop left in this race. There is still a strategy element that continues to linger around. I mean, you look at 50 laps now on the set of tires. They're starting to be worn. Cedric Hunter is looking at this moment to be his crossover point, to be the sweet spot. Gain time now on Perosini in the battle for what could be 4th here. And some time to gain on Harlow. And, of course, Steven Stepien running second. Still tracking down the race leader, by the way, at 3/10. But, I mean, there still could be a big change in this. Pit road speeding penalties, another yellow. I mean, there is still that strategy element that Keith and the rest of this field still has to worry about. So then you think about it. I mean, would you go for 2? And what placement is the best area for 2 tires?
There is no correct placement for 2 tires, Kenneth. You do it because you get the handling, but if you could get the track position with the handling, it's so much better off for you. And I don't know who in this top 5 would try that for a fact. I just know that it's on the cards, it's on the table. They now know for sure with Jaden Porter trying it last week that it's a viable option. The only thing that would make me worried is how old the left sides are when that strategy is tried.
And these tires will be miraculously old by the time this is all said and done. There's Jaden Porter on the outside of Perosini, so the fight for 5th will continue. And, well, speak of it, here comes Perosini deciding this is his time to come in. 36 laps to go, and Perosini will be the first driver from the top 5 to pit. Now, again, question is, does he use the 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles, or is he just electing the 4? There are the leaders there, Ross Harlow and Cedric Hunter. Their battle for 3rd will shape up on the right side of your screen as we watch Perosini take his long trip to the pit box.
Interesting decision to pit there for the 96, Kenneth. I'm not sure what the reason was for him to bring it down pit road. Everybody should be good to go to the end of this race. Everybody doesn't have to worry about fuel for sure. And we're approaching already inside of 35 laps to go, so I'm not sure anybody would really bring it down the lane. Fearing a caution flag, of course, but also just the fact that They're going to lose so much time. Perusini exits the lane. He's in 18th. He's only 1 lap down. The first car 1 lap down right now is the 72 of Matt Baines, who's just crossing the start-finish line, whilst the 96 was going into turn 4. So it's not that huge of a gap between himself and the first car 1 lap down. And he's going to be so much faster than everybody. He's going to be roughly about 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker per lap on the beginning of this run. It'll transition over to 1 second. I don't think there's enough time for him to drive his way through the entire field, 1 lap himself, and then go back at it again. My only guess is that he's expecting some people to pit later, and he wanted to get out in front of it all.
Oh, just a thought there about what the 96 of Perusini's trying. I mean, not to be surprised that he's tried some of these longer pit road strategies before, or these some sort of different calls, but it's 4 fresh tires. You saw 14.6 seconds on his stretch coming in. As
I
here
think
comes
Keith is
Steven
pitting.
stepping. Yeah, Warren Kyle Keith has decided in his time too. 30 laps to go, and this is the battle for the lead. Cedric Hunter takes advantage. He pounces on the inside. Cedric Hunter back to the front.
This is an interesting choice by the field to start pitting here late, as Warren Kyle Keith is making his way down the pit lane. He waited about 3 or so laps after Perusini, so if there's no major problems here for the 24, he'll probably get jumped by Perusini and all this. Now, if this is the case of the pit road being open for everybody else in the field, how long does it take for anybody to respond?
It may not take very long, especially from the race leader. That is 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, so he's in and out on his 14-second stop. The race leader's coming across turns 3 and 4, and Cedric Hunter continues to lead. No sign of any of them coming in, and neither is really anyone from this top 5, Francisco. So it is really just a game of balance. Do you think the tires are too worn down to keep going? Is the confidence on fuel too low? I mean, now there should be a point, Francisco, where you do come in, and then you'll have to cycle around, and either it's too late to cycle around because there will be maybe less than 15 to go at a short track like Iowa, or there just is a situation where your track position loss is too great and nobody else comes in. I mean, this is a big question mark for everyone. And now you think of it, if Warren Kyle Keith had to come in, is that the same concern for anyone here in the front?
And these pit stops, they're 100% for tires, Kenneth. Fuel was not a concern. That with the fuel window being 120 laps, it was never really in doubt that these guys were short on fuel. I think this is purely a move on tires, just trying to run faster laps. Some of them probably thought that they'd get a better result out of trying this strategy. The fall off is, like I said, close to 2 seconds, and it's going to be this way for the rest of the run. Matthew Perusini, that last lap was just about half a second slower than his fastest lap of the race. It's a 23.2, but that's almost a second quicker than your race leader. So if he's able to keep that up steadily at a second over the next 26 laps, 25 laps, it makes it close, but he's just so far behind that I don't think he can get up towards the race leaders. I think the biggest thing he's hoping for is that everybody would bring it down pit road, he'd jump them. But even then, so I think if anybody pits on the green now, there's still the chance that someone takes 2 tires, and obviously the risk of a yellow.
And you think for Warren Kyle Keith for leading this race, if there is no call for pit road from any of these front runners and they stay out for as long as they can, knowing that the fuel is not a concern, I mean, that will be a race thrown away for Keith. I mean, hoping that, of course, the strategy would come in his favor, or a yellow flag will come out most importantly. I mean, but that is just an awkward situation. Remember, that did start because of that yellow at lap 135, which is so far tonight our only thrown yellow of the evening for an on-track caution. There's no stages here in the 2026 season, so we've had really no break in the action apart from that yellow flag from the spinning Lauren Vincent. And then we nearly had a yellow or 2 from Cedric Hunter going sideways there off of his pit stop on a green flag stretch. He now leads this race by nearly a second and a half. And here's their 2 teammates, friendly fire back in turn 1. And Jaden Porter, sneaky but fast here on this most recent run, Francisco, right in the midst of the top 5. And the driver who led 103 laps last week at Las Vegas, the most that he has ever led in a single DTH Cup Series start, now slithering on the bottom and hoping he can take advantage of this battle here off turn 4. Here he comes.
And I gotta ask the question as well, Kenneth, how much of that decision to pit was due to the pace of Cedric Hunter. We talked about how about 60 laps into the run was when he really looked at his fastest. Those pit stops were done right around the 50-ish, almost 60 lap mark, and Hunter was already working his way through some of those traffic behind. So I think those drivers in particular, like Cedric, or like Warren Kyle Keith, like Matthew Ferracini, they probably cut their losses. They probably realized we're going to get past, and we probably don't think a caution flag is going to come out. So bring it down pit road, take some tires, and hope it's enough.
So in the midst of all that, Warren Kyle Keith and Perusini have fallen a lap down. Now, if, of course, there is a caution flag, Perusini would have the lucky dog. He would have the SKM lucky dog to go around the field and get back on the lead lap. And Warren Kyle Keith would, theoretically, given the situation it falls right now, if a yellow were to come out at this very moment, he would have to wait for the next one. And given the trends tonight, that hasn't really been the case. The yellows haven't been too frequent out there on the speedway. So there really is a play with fire that Warren Kyle Keith and Matthew Perusini are putting there on the racetrack with 18 laps to go at the start-finish line, and really no sign of the front-running group taking any stretch into the pit lane for a set of Goodyear Eagles. Cedric Hunter enjoys the largest gap we've seen from a leader since Ross Harlow did it under the green flag strategy point, to which Cedric Hunter eventually got by him over a long run. And it's a 2nd and 8/10, nearly 2 full seconds between the top running two. You look back to 4th and 5th. Steven Stempien holds a nearly 2-second advantage over Garrett Walden on a very quiet but effective run for the 43 car. And now he'll be under fire here from Brandon Banks in the fight for the top 5 position. Here comes Banks to the inside off of turn 2, and he'll make the move, entering turn 3 this time by. Garrett Walden with a solid recovery drive at Las Vegas last week, and one of the top standing rookie drivers in the point standings as it goes. And those two Chevrolets go at it back to turn 1. And really, this is the point where, if you haven't locked in, Francisco, this is the moment where you do so, because you're on the edge of grip, tires are falling away, and we've seen, even post-next-gen update, tracks like Dover, maybe not Iowa as much, but plenty of other short tracks that are more abrasive in nature. You can blow a tire. You don't necessarily blow it in the way that the Cup Series drivers do in real life, where the car just blows and then you have no steering to a wall. This car is just going to become undrivable, and you get a meatball flag. How does that happen in iRacing, and how is that so much of a concern for these drivers staying out at this moment?
Let's talk about which tire blowing in this situation. If it's the right front that goes on your race car, the car does not want to turn. It will, but you will have no grip. You'll just be so much slower going through the entirety of the corner, and you're waiting forever to get on the throttle. Now, if the right rear goes on your race car, good luck trying to touch your right pedal. It's going to want to spin out all the time anytime you touch and put any kind of throttle into it. So it's a very careful act if you go through the entire life of your tires and it just goes away from under you. I've rarely ever had the tire go away from me, but one time I did was in the slide job race at Phoenix with the next gens. This was back, I want to say, sometime in August, and the right front went away from me about 55 laps into that race. The right front was gone. I got it down to 4% when I made my green flag pit stop, Kenneth, 4%, and I was so slow. I was still 4th when I pitted, but I was so much slower than everybody that's why I pitted. And good thing I did, because I think one more lap and it would have reached 0.
And that's scarier when it does, because the steering goes away. I mean, this car basically becomes a brick, and it doesn't even feel like it's on wheels. And that's what these front runners, even everybody in the top 15, are still worried about. I mean, these tires can go a little while, but they're on lap 77 of a stint. That is a hefty time out there on the racetrack without coming in for service. And they're just hoping that they can bring it to the next 10 laps and believe that we will take them across the finish line without any lingering issues. Here's a look at Chuck Stevens, driver of the number 84, looking for his 2nd straight top 10 effort in this 2026 season. His first start coming to Las Vegas last week, and really just solidifying himself as a top 10 car the entire night. Had a bit of a setback midway through the race, through some of those cautions, but rebounded to finish 8th. And finishing 9th right now would be right on the task for this 84 car to make headway, try to catch up to the rest in the point standings that had that leg up on him, which is, of course, that extra start in the Daytona International Speedway opener not that long ago. Kip Easley, the pole sitter, has just sort of faded back in the background, but still a top 10 for the DBR Chevrolet would be something worth noting. Charles Van Schaik is the one he's chasing right now, but nearly about 2 1.9 seconds back of the 23 car.
Oh, Ray Rogers going down pit road here.
And Ray Rogers is in. We did see him fall outside of the top 10, Francisco. So the Ryobi Chevrolet, I mean, probably same deal with either Parasini or Keith, or maybe this is the effect of the tires now officially blowing with 8 laps to go.
Has to be. He was on the verge of going 1 lap down. He was running on the edge of the top 10, so I don't think he would pit here with 8 laps to go just to give up all these positions, because this late in the race, at that point, that's what you do.
And Steppien's also
for
in.
Ray Rogers and Stempien in too. And I saw him going slower these last handful of laps. He was running almost an entire second off the pace, so I think this is very much getting the meatball flag from your tires going away.
And that's going to hurt. Remember, we came into this run, and we didn't really tell you, but there were 11 cars on the lead lap. Now Warren Kyle Keith and Matthew Parasini have both unlapped themselves, so they're back in the realm to sort of put themselves into points-paying position, given the way this race has unfolded, and a possible top 10 on the cards with these tires blowing away. There's Stepien at the exit of pit lane, just trying to get himself up through the gears. Cedric Hunter now up by nearly 4 seconds with 6 laps to go. And are the rest of the flies going to drop in the final 5?
I think there's one driver that won't happen to, and that's the race leader, because he's saved his tires better than everybody, and the lap times certainly reflect that. So I don't think Cedric Hunter has too much to worry about as far as the tires on his right front going. And even if you get the meatball flag now, Kenneth, since we've gotten to 5 laps to go, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but you have about 5 laps to bring it down pit road. Otherwise, you get a penalty. Since there's less than that available, there might not be enough laps for you to bring it down pit road if it happens. So I'm not sure what happens in that instance if it goes away, since there's not, you don't ever get to the point of you being disqualified, or does it move you to the end of the lap?
That'll be something for post-race admins to decide. There's Ross Harlow running in second after a textbook race at the front, but just has not been able to outlast Cedric Hunter. And here's Jaden Porter making a move on the high side, a pivot for the last week race winner to go for a back-to-back podium effort. The Louisville, Kentucky native stabs on the outside, makes the attempt, and will clear the 16. Jaden Porter with a move on top. Final laps to go, and the battle for second is still underway.
Just be a sign of the 16s right front kind of going away. Jaden Porter's nearly a whole second behind Ross Harlow not 5 laps ago, and makes that pass relatively easily, as Cedric Hunter has driven a fantastic race here. Kenneth, he has been by far the best car on these long runs after 50 laps on our tire sets. Nobody's really come close to him in the long run of it all. And in a race with only 1 yellow flag, it has been very clearly the way to go for Cedric Hunter, who takes the white flag. 1 lap to go for the driver of the 45, and he's approaching half a lap away from his first win of season number 2.
He started beneath the top 20 last week at Las Vegas, climbed all the way to second, and looking for a moment exactly like this, where tonight his second career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win will come from the cornfields of Iowa. Hunter gets it done.
And what a turnaround from last season, where it took him all the way until Charlotte in the playoffs to win a race. He does it here in race number 3 of the season. And with this result, I believe Jaden Porter, finishing second here tonight, will be your points leader after this race. Brandon Banks did finish 4th, so it will be close. But what a job by those two. Really have done a fantastic effort on being consistent all season long. And Hunter's done his job as well. And this win is going to commemorate it.
For the second time in his career, Cedric Hunter will visit Droppin the Hammah victory lane. And it comes here at the short track at Iowa and burns it down on the front straightaway. Cedric's only Cup Series victory back at Charlotte. A very crucial one that catapulted his playoff dreams and sent him to the championship, as his teammate crossed the line first, shared the celebrations with him, but now Hunter can share celebrations of his own. And in the season so far, or the top 3 winners in the first 3 races have all at least won 1 DTH Cup Series race before. The trend continues. And the Polish victory lap for Cedric Hunter on an outstanding victory from Iowa. Francisco, that was textbook outlasting the field. On old tires, you had long strategy, And wherever you looked past lap 50 in a run, this car was going to be there.
You know, there's some people that are older than you and me, Kenneth, that have watched NASCAR for the better part of 40 years that would refer to this as a good old butt kicking.
It was.
Because that's what that was out there.
A typical run for Cedric Hunter, a dominant effort, and possibly the most dominant we have seen Cedric Hunter in his entire career. As he continues his celebrations, he'll park it in victory lane here from Newton, Iowa on our first ever trip to this track in series history. So let's give you the full rundown. The results here from Iowa, race number 3 of 2026, where it is Cedric Hunter captaining the charge and getting his second career dub right here at Iowa. Jaden Porter backs up his win last week at Las Vegas with a runner-up finish in second. He ended up getting around Ross Harlow in third, and really for Harlow to not have won this race, you know, still a dominant effort leading over 100 laps and putting himself in the right place, and this is a great points finish, his best finish as well of the 2026 season. Brandon Banks continues his top 5 streak from Daytona after winning there and a second place last week at Vegas. It's 4th tonight from Iowa. Garrett Walden with a top 5 effort in his number 43 car, very sneaky run after finishing in 7th last week. Charles Van Schuyck, great run all night long and really a top 10 solidified car as the 23 and 6. Chuck Stevens, his second consecutive top 10 Cubs tonight with 7th. Alex Muscarella runs up to 8th. And how about Perosini and Warren Kyle Keith? Pitted late in the race from top 5 running position, had fresh tires to avoid the meatball flag, and they concluded the top 10.
11th will go to Kevin Roy, who just got passed by those drivers there. Was on for a top 10 run. Matt Baines will finish in 12th. Steven Stemping had to pit there late for the blown tire, finishes in 13th. Richard Swavely in 14th. Ray Rogers in a very much similar situation, 2 laps down in 15th. Casey Knighton in 16th. Kip Beasley, I guess, had the same issue as well. Our pole sitter had a great opening stint, just didn't really match that pace for the rest of the night. Finishes 17th. Jesse Whittington in the 18th position. James Kunkel in 19th. Brad Fulham rounds out our top 20.
Back in 21st is Lauren Vincent, 12 laps down before you find Stephen Harlow, an early exit for him. Timothy Stubblefield, also an early one. Christian McCrelly went down, and he's 165 laps down. 24th, Sheldon Hart is 203 laps down. He did basically make the green flag. Didn't last that long. The 74 car wraps up our 25-car field from Iowa Speedway. So we join the 45 car and the driver behind the wheel of that machine, Cedric Hunter, for the first time in Droppin' the Hammah victory lane in 2026, and for the second time in his Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series career. Cedric, I remember that Charlotte race. I'm sure you remember it very well, how that really elevated your momentum for a playoff push that led to a championship run. This was in a very well differently said way. Dominance from the word go. Long green flag runs is where you found your place. What about this win makes it so special in the way you performed at the end?
It feels great, man. It took me so long last season to get a win. Kind of as you noted, I waited till the playoffs, and then, well, thankfully, momentum helped me out to get to the championship four. But this time we get it done in the first few races, so feels great. Hopefully, I can carry that on into the next, or I guess at Texas, because I will for sure be doing starting parks for the next 2 weeks. That's already a guarantee. But with all that being said, long run pace obviously tonight was phenomenal. I love the new Iowa. Like, I know a lot of people don't really care for it, but I feel like I've kind of figured out. Obviously, I had the long runs. My short run pace is okay. I mean, it's like I guess able to hang on to the top 5-ish after the caution came out. So I just did whatever I could to save my right front, man, hoping that those guys were going to battle. Thankfully, they did. And Ross and Jane were telling me, I guess, in the last 15 or so laps, they got the tire warning that it's starting to get low in percentages. And I mean, for me, it never came. So that's great news. Hopefully, we go to Iowa more often.
Lots of tire saving involved in this race, not only in that final run, but basically throughout the entirety of it, dominated by just long green flag stretches where you had to keep your tires under you. How did you keep the tires under you? I mean, this car was in its best form, past lap 40 or 45 in a stint. We said you were going to always be lingering around, and you did. What was so magical with the tire saving method and how it helped you move up through traffic when the runs got late enough?
Yeah, I think that's, I I don't think really anybody was running the corner like I was, apart from Jaden on the last run, where I just entered really shallow. I parked the middle of the corner as much as possible. Like I was probably going way slower than anybody else in the field, and then just exited low, man. Like I was just doing that on repeat for 90 laps, and it would end up working out. Most of the guys were running kind of the middle line, so even though I was behind, multiple cars, I just had so much clean air too, which really helped. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're in traffic. When everybody gives you clean air, you might as well be the leader.
So, Cedric, you get this win tonight. This will certainly help your case, and obviously a great finish last week at Las Vegas. You continue to back up this thing. How special is this win tonight from Iowa, just given the way it went and just the dominance you held on the field in those final runs?
Again, it means a lot. Obviously, I love long green flag runs tonight. The guys did a really good job of. I think we only had one caution. I think 1 or 2 cautions. So it's what you love to see. Yeah, I love these longer races too. It's not many leagues that have 200 plus laps. So and this league does it every week. So it's great. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season, man. These guys do a great job out here. Everyone races clean. I've really got nothing to complain about. So shout out to everybody in the field, to the admin team, to everybody watching, and to Jane and to Ross there for keeping pace and honestly just giving me a run for my money there. It was just a lot of fun.
Well, Cedric, it's a fantastic win tonight from Iowa Speedway. Your second in your DTH Cup Series career and a big momentum booster very early in 2026. Before we let you bounce and continue the celebrations tonight, anybody that you want to shout out or thank for the run?
Yeah, man. I pretty much just listed everybody, but I honestly I forgot you guys. As always, you guys do a fantastic job. Really looking forward to going back and rewatching this race. And Francisco, I'm pretty sure actually, and I'm sorry to bring it up on the broadcast, but I only get to talk to you here. I'm pretty sure you're the only Toyota team, by the way, in the field. So whenever you end up racing this season, we should team up here as the 2 lone Toyotas.
Yeah, we got that. The Toyota squad's got to look out for one another, Cedric.
Well, Cedric,
exactly, man.
If you go to a certain point in the broadcast, we actually did talk about that. So possibly you're the lone beacon for Toyota representation in this league. And you're definitely going to hear your name a lot in that show because you definitely put on a show tonight, Cedric. Congratulations on your second career drop in the Hammah Cup Series victory. Long awaiting this one, your first one at a short track as well. Congratulations once again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, fingers crossed. I'll talk to you guys a lot this season.
Well, Francisco, yep, you definitely got to match him as the only other Toyota in the field because this team, this series, likes a lot of its Chevrolets, its Fords. One of those Chevrolets tonight was BBR's. Jaden Porter runs up second here at Iowa. You're caught up with him.
Well, Jaden, it was another solid run for you here tonight, especially in that second half of the race. Looks like you found something to give you some momentum. Not quite anybody had anything for Cedric, so I'll just ask you, what was working for you out there on the racetrack to be able to get you a second place finish?
Yeah, I don't know. That whole first run before we got that caution, I was just honestly, I wouldn't even say it was me driving. Well, I was driving it wrong, but I also just was not into the race for whatever reason. I was just not locked. I couldn't focus or whatever. I don't know what was going on, honestly. I've never felt that way behind the wheel on iRacing, but whatever it was, I need to figure it out. But that second half of the run or second half of the race, I was able to kind of lock myself in under the caution, wake myself up a little bit for the race, and kind of found something in 1 and 2 to kind of get me around the corner a lot better without killing my right front. I tried everything to stay with Cedric, but in order to stay with him, I probably would have got a meatball. It was on rails tonight. I don't know what he had or whatever, but he was obviously the car to beat. But after the first race, I'm just really surprised I got the second. I wasn't really expecting that at all.
Yeah, it was a foregone conclusion of being able to reach him, Jaden. But you remain second in the standings to Brandon. It's a 4-point gap between you and him. Going over to the Echo Park Speedway next time out for some super speedway racing once again for the second time this season. How do you think you're going to fare, and what's going to be the goal at Atlanta Super Speedway, which, unlike Daytona and Talladega, just races so differently for that kind of style of racing?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. Track switching's gonna matter like it always does, but if we go long enough and have like green flag stops like we did Daytona, tires are gonna matter next week. Like Atlanta's one of those. That's I love uh, Echo Park out of a lot better than Daytona and Talladega just because tires can matter towards the end of the run if we go long enough. I think that just adds like an extra. That's like it's extra characteristic to the track, and I love that to be honest. But we just need to get ourselves to the end of the race. Feel like we did a good job of that. Daytona just was in the wrong lines late in the race, but yeah, just put ourselves in position late in the race to try to capitalize on a win. It's gonna be hard to do. We just survive the race, but hopefully we can grab the points lead next week and hopefully grab another check flag.
Yeah, it'll be a good one out there from the Echo Park Speedway, Jaden. Before we let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to? The house makes this happen for you and the whole 82 team.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone at KBueno Racing, Nicholas Bauman for making the paints for updating the paint scheme a little bit. We tried a different put some pink on the car for a little bit. You know, we'll run different variations of this ally scheme. Thanks to Ally. Uh, thanks to everybody watching my stream and the YouTube stream, and thanks to everyone at KBRN.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see all those 28 schemes just kind of flip those numbers around. That's what we're going to be seeing here on Sundays. I'll tell Nick to kind of hurry it up. I'm sure that'll work. You know how he is. But thank you for joining us,
Yeah.
Jaden. Congratulations on the podium run this evening, and we hope to see you out at Echo Park Speedway next week.
All right, thank you, buddy.
We'll be tracking Nicholas Bauman down.
Swap those numbers
at
around,
the end of
Kenneth.
that race. Yeah, he still has the 82 here. Very good looking car, but the same scheme as he started this season with.
It's not that hard. You just got to move the number around. Just put the 2 where the 8 goes and the 8 where the 2 goes.
That's true. That's true. It's literally just a simple flip. Nicholas Bauman, you're on a mission. Let's talk to the third place finisher tonight. That is, of course, Ross Harlow, who joins us now. I mean, talk about dominance early on, leading over 100 laps tonight. This car was on rails. Final run tested you, though. What did you need there in that final run to just be that bit faster to be in the hunt for the race lead?
I just had too much front brake in it. That car was great in a 20 lap span, 30 lap span. That thing was a rocket ship, but just too much front brake in it. I really tore myself up. You remember how during that last caution during the interview, I said like I gotta not get too racy, not get distracted. I didn't do that. I fired off with Cedric there. I got all excited when I got a better launch than he did, and I was like, I want to hold on to this thing till the very end, and I shouldn't have done that. I know better than that at this point, especially racing guys like Cedric, Stempy, Jaden wound up there. I mean, Warren. There's so much talent in this series, and yeah, I just got in my own head, trying to hold on to the thing, trying to keep the thing, keep it out front, but still couldn't be more happy with a podium tonight. I mean, that was some of the best racing I think I've put on in a while.
And this is not just the best of your resume so far in 2026. This is a complete resume of 3 straight top 10s since Daytona. And now that this series has shifted over into a chase mindset versus a win and you're in playoff system, how important are these first 3 races to get that first step out in front and be top 10, top 15 in point standings to set yourself up nicely for a chase run later this season? And how important is it to have it start very early?
Oh, it's huge. It's this is such a momentum-based series. There's so much talent here. Anyone could show up and win any given weekend. I mean, yeah, I know I led a lot tonight, but look at how many guys came up there and wound up fighting. That that's just the way it is. You're never going to see just one car completely run away with it. Start to finish. So you get that momentum, you get that confidence. It makes a huge difference. But especially for me, I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. We're going on. Wife and I are going on our honeymoon, so we're that's I gotta get what I can while I can. Yeah, I was really hoping to get a win tonight, but I'll take 3 top 10s in a row.
All right. Well, first, just want to say congratulations to both of you. I hope the honeymoon is very fun. Hope you guys have a ton of fun there. But I guess going into the rest of the scope of the season, what stands out to you the most to maybe be some tracks you'll find as potential race wins, or maybe those that you see that could give you maybe positive boosts as we enter midway, even though it's still early now?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy Auto Club. I know most guys, a lot of guys say that they, say that, but I'm looking forward to Auto Club. Charlotte's a favorite of mine. I haven't had the best of luck there, but I really do enjoy racing there. I usually can at least run relatively well. Pocono, I have a lot of fun at Pocono. That's one of my favorite tracks on the schedule after this. Sonoma, Loudon, won at Loudon last season, did well at Sonoma last season. I think both of those tracks are going to be a lot of fun. And then finishing the championship off with Dover, Darlington, Bristol, and Charlotte. That's the exact opposite of what we were seeing last season. With those 2 super speedways mixed in last year. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's really going to let the driver in the car shine, and who's going to show up prepared. I don't know how many of those I'm going to be able to make, but I'm going to show up for what I can and give Gloria a good go for sure.
Well, hopefully you're able to make a bulk of those, hopefully all of them. But Ross, a great effort tonight on a top 3 here from the virtual Iowa Speedway. Before we let you bounce, anybody that you want to shout out or thank for the run?
Oh, absolutely. Right off the bat, gotta thank the whole family, mom, dad, my whole team, everybody that works together for this. On the DTH, the HFM, kind of collaborative there. All of my sponsors, Tilbahala Project, who I've been working with for years, G&G's Gift, who just did their last season here, and you guys for putting the broadcast on, the whole admin team. Of course, the biggest thank you, as always, goes to the wife. Couldn't do any of this without her. We've been working on getting the late model, the real life kind of stuff off the ground here. We got the car, but just all the logistics, I couldn't do any of it without her. She really is. She's my absolute rock, and so.
Well, Ross, we certainly do appreciate the time. We firstly want to say wishing you a happy and lovely honeymoon, and not too long from now. But congratulations on the top 3 here tonight from the Iowa Speedway. We'll see you soon, and hopefully we'll talk to you in a bit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kenneth.
Ross Harlow comes away with a top 3 effort tonight from the virtual Iowa Speedway after a long and grueling race, tire concerns, fuel strategy. Francisco, we almost had it all. Only one caution, and it was at lap 135, so we basically broke this race in half. And now we're done with Iowa. We go super speedway racing again. Echo Park to host in the next race of this 2026 season on March 15th. What should we expect from that one, Francisco? We already got a bit of taste from what Jaden Porter said in the interview. Tire wear, high speeds, high intensity action.
Yeah, Atlanta races so much differently than Talladega and Daytona does. At Daytona and Talladega, you have these long straightaways. The corners are banked, but you never really have to worry about rolling out of the throttle. At Atlanta, on the other hand, at Echo Park, you kind of have to roll off going into the corners because the runs you get happen so quickly with the shorter straightaways, the corners, they just compress the car so much, and you get these runs out of nowhere, it seems. So you have to be careful with your runs, and that's why you see a lot of times in real life, drivers will take those runs more often than they would at the other super speedways because they're not on a straight line to the point where they're just going to get dragged back by the wind, and the speeds they're going at Echo Park, they're going slightly slower, but the runs you get are so much bigger that you just have to kind of take them, and we kind of saw that in the race last season towards the playoffs in that one. So we'll see what happens this time out, though. We'll be talking after the build, so we'll see if there's any setup changes or any kind of characteristic differences with iRacing when we get those setup changes and just the usual differences that come with the brand new build. So we'll see what happens when we get out there and how it drives, even if it's slightly different than what these drivers may be used to now.
That's true. There will be lots of changes still implementing, and with 3 different race winners so far to kick off the first 3 races, still so much left of this 2026 season to decipher, and we hope that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network for it all. throughout the year. Still so much left to go. Speaking of action on the KBueno Racing Network, it doesn't just stop at the DTH Cup Series, because tomorrow night we'll be racing from the fastest half mile in Bristol, Connecticut, or Bristol, Tennessee. Bristol Motor Speedway. I was thinking of ESPN. Bristol Motor Speedway. That action comes to you tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll go short track racing for the KBRN Truck Series as the regular season continues to push forward. No Wednesday action for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, as they are taking their week off for the playoff race that'll happen the following week at the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But Thursday, SAC Cup Series action kicks off from the Tricky Triangle at Pocono Raceway on Thursday night. Same time, same place, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and right here on the KBueno Racing Network. Before, of course, we turn back to the DTH Cup Series and its turn with the Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta, Georgia. That coverage, of course, same time as always, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the KBueno Racing Network. So that would do it from us at the virtual Iowa Speedway. On a huge thank you to Steven Stempien and Chris Progar for their hard work and efforts to make this DTH Cup Series come alive as it has in 2026. And for all of the wonderful people at the KBueno Racing Network, for Keelan Belsha, Charlie Beyer, Eli Comerford, Nate Polite, and so many more. And for my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I am Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Newton, where it's Cedric Hunter coming away with his second career DTH Cup Series victory as we head to the Super Speedway 1 week from tonight.